Chapter 39-35. Sai the crowd of monsters sighed. After all, only a few believed that Yuanya could win. Suddenly, another monster cried out. No, this Baxiao is so strong. How could it be a level 4 gladiator beast? If it was level 5 or level 6, I would believe it. North Sea Dragon Palace. You have to give us an explanation. Sorry, Ma Yingfeng said indifferently. There's nothing to explain. It's recorded in my North Sea Dragon Palace's strategy book. No, the monsters who lost the bet were dissatisfied. Ma Yingfeng snorted coldly. If you think Baxiao isn't a level 4 gladiator beast, you can bet on him. If you win, my Yazi Gladiator Arena will compensate you. Now that you have no choice, how can you blame my Yazi Gladiator Arena? All of the demons were speechless. However, looking at the expressions of these demons, they were still somewhat indignant. Why would Xiaohua care about these monsters? He happily got up and was about to walk to the side door, but at this moment Ma Yingfeng said, if fellow immortals are unwilling, then watch the next battle. Perhaps fellow immortals will have another surprise. As he spoke, Ma Yingfeng raised his hand and pointed. Ayo! A loud and clear lion's roar came from the hole where Yuanya had disappeared, and from another hole, a small cage flew out. When Xiaohua saw the demonic beast in the cage, he couldn't help but be stunned. The cage was extremely small, even smaller than the one Yuanya was in. Inside the cage, there was a dwarf that was only 3 feet tall lying on the ground. Wasn't this the Heavenly River Water Tribe that Xiaohua saw in the Immortal Town? At that moment, the dwarf was naked and covered in scales. Some of the scales had been peeled off, and some of them were damaged and bloodstained. There was a tear on his right arm, and the top of his head, which was originally covered in armor, was now empty. A pair of branches that looked like dragon horns had poked out. However, a small part of the dragon horns was broken, and there were bloodstains on them. Looking at the dwarf's lower body, other than the 2 legs that were similar to dragon claws, a dragon tail poked out from behind him. Jiangsheng. Xiaohua stopped and looked at the arena in shock. He thought to himself, isn't he the dragon general of the Heavenly Abode River? How did it fall into the hands of the North Sea Dragon Palace? However, after thinking about it for a while, he understood that the water tribe of the Dongtian River was stirring up trouble everywhere. They wanted to incite internal strife in the Dragon Palace of the 4 Seas, so that they could benefit from it. However, since they were stirring up trouble, it was inevitable that they would give themselves away. It was not too strange that Jiangsheng was captured by the North Sea Dragon Palace. However, seeing Jiangsheng in such a miserable state, and thinking back to the battle he had with him that day, Xiaohua felt very uncomfortable in his heart. If Jiangsheng flooded Longevity Town, Xiaohua should hate Jiangsheng. But if he put himself in Jiangsheng's shoes, wouldn't that dragon girl named Jiang Hong be 10,000 times more important than the people of Longevity Town? In particular, just a moment ago, when Yuanya was in danger, Xiaohua almost wanted to take action. That feeling of guilt had just disappeared because of Yuanya's victory. Therefore, Xiaohua understood Jiangsheng's feelings very well at that time, so it was difficult for him to feel any disgust. Since he is a hero, killing him or cutting him up is just a word. Why do you have to humiliate him like this? Xiaohua stood on the spot and looked at the introduction of Ma Jinfeng. He couldn't help but sneer. The actions of the North Sea Dragon Palace are really disappointing. In the arena, Ma Jinfeng raised his hand and pointed at Jiangsheng. He sneered and said, this is a remnant of the Dongtian River, named Jiangsheng. He was born from the mating of the dragon race and the human race, which is the commonly seen dragon man. This dragon man has boundless strength, and in my Yazi arena, he is classified as a Class 5 monster beast. This guy killed the dragon general of the North Sea Dragon Palace, and violated the dragon law of the North Sea Dragon Palace. However, considering that he has the bloodline of the dragon race, we gave him a special favor, and did not kill him immediately. We allowed him to fight in the arena to atone for his crime. This fire lion, there is no need for this old man to say more. You can bet on it yourself. Perhaps it was because the crowd of monsters was a little agitated, or perhaps it was because Ma Jinfeng wanted Jiangsheng to die earlier, but the introduction of this battle was especially short. Xiaohua didn't move anymore. The crowd of monsters had already finished placing their bets. In the arena, 2 cages had already been opened. Jiangsheng was thrown to the ground. In the other cage, a fire lion with flickering flames around its body leaped into the air vigorously. It rushed out from the huge rocks and pounced towards Jiangsheng. Bite him to death, bite him to death. Seeing Jiangsheng covered in wounds, how could the monsters not know that the North Sea Dragon Palace was humiliating Jiangsheng? Jiangsheng was definitely going to die in this arena? They had already placed their sea crystals on the fire lion. Seeing Jiangsheng's short body fall to the ground, the fire lion pounced towards him crazily. The monsters all shouted loudly. Woo! Before the fire lion pounced, it had already spat out scarlet flames from its mouth and enveloped Jiangsheng. Ao Ao! Jiangsheng cried out loudly. He rolled on the ground, trying to extinguish the flames. However, when the fire lion opened its bloody mouth and bit towards Jiangsheng, the flames on Jiangsheng's body still hadn't been extinguished. Roar! Seeing that he was about to be bitten into 2, Jiangsheng also roared loudly. He jumped up from the ground in extreme madness and pounced towards the fire lion. He grew 2 hands and bit the fire lion. The battle between Jiangsheng and the fire lion was different from the battle between Yuanya and the horned python. The 2 monsters were completely close to each other. Not only was the fire lion's body torn by Jiangsheng's bare hands, but Jiangsheng's body was also torn by the fire lion's iron claws. Xiaohua's gaze was attracted by this unusually bloody and intense battle. He was worried for his former opponent. This fire lion was very powerful. If Jiangsheng wasn't careful, he would be torn apart by the fire lion. Roar! The fire lion roared. It waved its left claw like a slap and slapped Jiangsheng to the ground. Then it pounced forward and stepped on Jiangsheng's chest with its right claw. Prung! Just as the fire lion was about to pounce, Jiangsheng lifted his leg and kicked the fire lion's abdomen. Then Jiangsheng's dragon tail suddenly swung, and the fire lion's body was thrown high into the sky. Before the fire lion could stabilize its body, Jiangsheng suddenly pounced on it. Similar to how Yuanya dealt with the horned python, Jiangsheng immediately plunged his hands into the fire lion's neck. Then with a pu sound, his dragon tail directly stabbed into the fire lion's eyes. Ao Ao! The fire lion screamed and rolled on the ground. However, Jiangsheng hugged the fire lion's neck tightly and didn't let go. In just half a cup of tea's time, the fire lion's aura disappeared. It was strangled to death by Jiangsheng. Jiangsheng coldly raised his head and grabbed the fire lion. Wu! A gust of wind blew, and the fire lion's corpse flew towards Sifeng above the blood clouds. How dare you? Sifeng coldly rebuked. He lifted his hand and pointed. Several blue streams of water appeared out of thin air and trapped Jiangsheng. Those streams of water quickly flowed deep into Jiangsheng's body. Not only were his scales torn off, even more blood flowed out from his wounds. Jiangsheng rolled on the ground in pain. However, he still clenched his teeth and fiercely glared at Sifeng. Damn it! Xiaohua and Jiangsheng could be considered to have gotten to know each other through fighting. Now they felt like heroes cherishing heroes. However, just as Xiaohua angrily cursed, he suddenly realized that it had been a long time since the end of Yuanya's battle. Why hasn't Yuanya returned? Moreover, the green-robed Xiaohua didn't make any movements. Xiaohua felt that something was wrong and hastily walked to the side door. Sure enough, the smiling Xian Kong was already waiting there with the heaven and earth bracelet in his hand. Seeing Xiaohua walk over, he smiled and waved the heaven and earth bracelet in his hand and said, "Immortal friend, why did you only come now? This old man thought that you had forgotten about the bet." "Hee, not at all, not at all," Xiaohua said with a smile. The battles in the Yazi Gladiator arena were really too exciting. I took a few more glances and almost forgot about it. Hearing Xiaohua's words, a trace of contempt flashed through Xian Kong's eyes. He handed the heaven and earth bracelet to Xiaohua and said, "This is the agreement between Immortal Friend and my North Sea Dragon Palace. 20% of the bet is Immortal Friends." Xiaohua took the heaven and earth bracelet and released a slightly weak divine sense. After taking a look, he was so surprised that his eyes narrowed. He cried out, "Why is it so much?" Basha's strength is a little beyond our expectations. That's why almost all of our fellow immortals have placed their bets on the horned python. Just 20% of the bets is already shocking enough. Xian Kong's smile was still the same as before. He said, however, this is only 20%. Immortal friend, have you thought of earning more? Oh, immortal friend Xian, what do you mean? Xiao Hua put the heaven and earth bracelet into his bosom. He looked behind Xian Kong and asked curiously, where's Ai's disciple? Why hasn't he come out yet? Don't worry, Xian Kong said in a low voice. Basha's fine now. However, this old man wants to discuss something with you, so he hasn't come out yet. Oh, what does a mortal friend want to say? Xiao Hua rolled his eyes and asked in a low voice. Xian Kong stared into Xiao Hua's eyes and probed. Immortal friend, have you thought of letting Basha participate in another battle? Why? Xiao Hua asked curiously. Ai's disciple has already participated in the last battle. His agreement with the North Sea Dragon Palace has ended. Immortal friend, you should remove the warrior slave seal for Ai's disciple and return his freedom. This old man didn't say that he wouldn't remove the warrior slave seal for Basha. This old man just wants to suggest that immortal friend let him participate in another battle. Could it be that immortal friend didn't see it? Until now, no immortal friend has participated in the battle. If Basha's disciple can participate, he'll definitely earn a lot of sea crystals. No. Xiao Hua shook his head and said, my disciple has already been injured in the previous battle. If he participates in another battle, won't he die here? Immortal friend, don't you think you can earn more sea crystals if you participate in another battle? Xian Kong asked with a smile. No. I still have to rely on this disciple to earn more origin stones in the future. Xiao Hua waved his hand and objected. Xian Kong's expression changed and he said coldly, actually, this old man doesn't want to fall out with a mortal friend. I want to discuss this properly. However, since a mortal friend refuses a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit, this old man will just tell you directly. Tell me what? Xiao Hua said coldly. Chapter 39-36. Basha 4, 7886, 9 was previously recorded as a Class 4 demon beast, but his strength has now reached Class 5. Previously, when he participated in the battle as a Class 4 demon beast, it caused unfairness in my Yazi Gladiator arena. Not only did the spectators have complaints about my Yazi Gladiator arena, but even my master felt that it was inappropriate. Therefore, this old man has already told Basha 4, 786, 9 that he must participate in another battle between Class 5 demon beasts before he can leave the gladiator arena. Fellow immortal Xiao Hua smiled and said, this is your Yazi Gladiator arena going back on its word. Xian Kong shrugged his shoulder that was exposed outside the tortoise shell and said, it's not going back on my word. It's just that you didn't clearly state Basha 4, 7, 8, 6, 9's true strength. What did my foolish disciple say? Xiao Hua understood that with Xian Kong's eloquence, he must have deceived and coaxed Yuanya like before. Yuanya, in order not to implicate Xiao Hua, would definitely agree. Sure enough, Xian Kong smiled and said, Basha 4, 7, 8, 6, 9 has already agreed. In fact, this old man didn't need to inform you. However, this old man feels that since you're Basha 4, 8, 8, 6, 9's master, this old man should inform you. That's good. Xiao Hua thought for a moment and said, but before the battle, you have to remove the 10,000 kill order and my disciple's slave warrior seal. Xian Kong thought for a moment and shook his head slightly. This old man can't promise you. All demon beasts can only remove the slave warrior seal when they leave the gladiator arena. Don't worry, Xiao Hua said again. This is the first condition. I have a second condition. Xian Kong didn't find it strange at all. He seemed to have expected Xiao Hua to say this. He just shook his head slightly and said, fellow immortal, sometimes it's better not to be too greedy. This Xiao Hua hesitated slightly. His eyes turned slightly and he said with a smile, since fellow immortal Xian Kong said so, then can I take 20% more of the bet? 20% is impossible. Xian Kong shook his head. But seeing that there are some misunderstandings between us, my Yazi Gladiator arena can give you 5% of the bet. 5%? That's too little. Xiao Hua pretended to hesitate. His real purpose was to let Xian Kong remove Yuanya's warrior slave seal first. When he saw that Xiao Hua was unwilling, Xian Kong waved his hand and said, "How about this? Both of us will take a step back." This old man agrees to remove the 10,000 kill command right now. And at the same time, I'll remove Boss Ya's 4, 7, 8, 8, 6, and 9 warrior slave seals. You only have to take 5% more. How about it? All right. Xiao Hua seemed to be in pain as he helplessly nodded. Xian Kong said with a smile, "That's the right decision, fellow immortal. Isn't there a saying in the human race that goes, a wise man submits to circumstances? That way, it'll be easier for both of us. And call my disciple over." Xiao Hua couldn't sense the aura of the green-robed Xiao Hua, so he urged Xian Kong. Sure. Xian Kong turned around, and with a wave of his finger, Yuanyo appeared in the distance. Meanwhile, Xiao Hua also appeared in Xiao Hua's senses. In an instant, Xiao Hua understood Xiao Hua's intentions, and he returned to the arena. Yes, Xiao Hua said, "You've already agreed." "Yes, master." Yuanyo replied. "Disciple doesn't want to implicate master. It's just a battle, so disciple will return in a moment." "All right." Xiao Hua nodded. "Since you've already decided, master can't say anything else. Go ahead and attack. There's no need to hold back." And disciple understands. Yuanya seemed to understand but didn't. "Before the battle, let fellow immortal Xian remove your warrior slave seal first," Xiao Hua said. "All right." Yuanya took a step forward and replied. Xian Kong waved the warrior slave seal, and the Yazi on the warrior slave seal spat out a stream of blood energy. The images of Xiao Hua and Yuanya in the bronze mirror slowly disappeared. Then, Xian Kong opened his mouth again, and a mouthful of demonic energy landed on the warrior slave seal. The warrior slave seal emitted a dazzling brilliance, and it rushed into the air and transformed into a Yazi. Xian Kong calmly took out a thumb-sized dragon seal from his bosom, and with a flick of his finger, the dragon seal landed in the Yazi's mouth. Pooh, the Yazi spat out a cluster of bloodlight that landed on Yuanya, and then the entire bloodlight was sucked back into the Yazi's mouth. Buzz buzz, the Yazi's body trembled, and the ferocious beast's mouth spat out a ferocious blood demon head. This demon head spun in the air for a moment, and then it slowly shrank, transforming into a drop of blood that landed in front of Yuanya. Xiao Hua raised his hand, and the drop of blood landed in his hand. Xiao Hua carefully looked at it, and then he said with a smile, "Very good. Disciple, you can go now." "Yes, master." Yuanya turned around without hesitation, and walked towards the entrance of the cave. This old man congratulates fellow immortal on returning with a fruitful journey. Xian Kong looked at Xiao Hua, and cupped his hands with a fake smile. "Haha, I definitely will. Many thanks to fellow immortal Xian for giving I this opportunity." Xiao Hua turned around and walked towards the arena. The true Samadhi fire in his hand flashed, and the drop of blood was burned into a wisp of smoke. Looking at Xiao Hua's back as he walked into the arena, Xian Kong smiled coldly. He had been in charge of the Yazi auction house for who knows how many years, and he had seen countless humans and monsters. How could he not know the reason why Xiao Jian took Yuanya away from the Baxiao arena that day? When Xiao Hua returned to the arena, everything in front of him made him have mixed feelings. Because the one in the arena at this moment was still Jiangsheng. The one fighting against him was a killer whale. This killer whale was huge, and it had the head of a tiger and the body of a whale. It was incomparably ferocious, and it was much more powerful than the fire lion from before. When Xiao Hua sat down on the chair, Jiangsheng had already been smashed onto a rock by the huge whale. Although it was not to the extent that his flesh was smashed and his bones broken, looking at the blood gushing out from the corner of Jiangsheng's mouth, Xiao Hua knew that Jiangsheng was seriously injured. Roar! Just as Xiao Hua was biting his lips, Jiangsheng let out an angry roar. His entire body flashed with a golden luster, and his body that was only 3 feet tall abruptly grew in size. However, he only grew to about 10 feet before stopping. At this moment, Jiangsheng was no longer in his human form, but in the form of a small dragon covered in scales. Jiangsheng, who had transformed into a dragon, roared and pounced towards the killer whale. His claws and fists continuously hit the killer whale's head, and in a moment, the killer whale was stunned. Then Jiangsheng's claws really pierced into the killer whale's cheeks, and with the strength of his arms, The entire killer whale was lifted up from the ground by Jiang Sheng. Go to hell, Jiang Sheng shouted. The huge killer whale flew out from his hand with a woo and rushed towards the arena's wall. Pung, a loud sound rang out, and the entire arena shook. Damn it! How can this shorty have so much strength? All the demons were extremely shocked. After all, demons were known for their physical bodies, but Jiang Sheng's strength still exceeded their imagination. Swoosh! Without waiting for Jiang Sheng to make another move, Ma Yingfeng, who was standing on the blood cloud, already used a cage to imprison Jiang Sheng, and sent him into the cave. No, no, another demon shouted. How can this dragon man be so powerful? Your Yazi Arena's actions are too unfair. He clearly has the strength of a level 9 fighting beast, but you insist on treating him as a level 5. Hehe, how can there be absolute fairness in this world? How can there be absolute certainty in this world? Ma Yingfeng sneered and said, if I let you all see it accurately, wouldn't this old man have to drink the northwest wind? Ma Yingfeng was naturally not as tactful as Xian Kong, and these words made all the demons unhappy. The entire gladiator arena was in an uproar. At this moment, Xian Kong hurriedly revealed himself in midair, and said with a smile, fellow immortals, General Ma Yingfeng is actually right. Think about it, everything in this world can be seen clearly, so how can there be love and hatred? How can this little dragon man from Heavenly Abode River betray us and assassinate the general of our North Sea Dragon Palace? It's because the matters in this world are not controlled by us demons, so there are many interesting things in this world. However, since fellow immortals have come to my Yazi Arena to watch the fights, then I will try my best to arrange everything in a fair manner. Xian Kong looked around, and everywhere he looked, the noise was reduced. Xian Kong was very satisfied, and said, for example, that Baxia from before, fellow immortals all feel that he might have the strength of a level 5 fighting beast. So this old man has already discussed with him, and let him fight another round to satisfy fellow immortals. Good, the demons all cheered loudly. This is true fairness, fellow immortal Xian has done well. Of course, there's also that remaining evil from Heavenly Abode River. Fellow immortals all feel that he is quite strong, so this old man will let him fight another round to satisfy fellow immortals. Good, the demons didn't expect Xian Kong's words to be the same as not saying anything, but they also felt that this was very fair, so they all cheered loudly. Xian Kong smiled faintly. Since that's the case, fellow immortals, please prepare yourselves. The next fight will begin immediately. With that, Xian Kong's figure disappeared, and Ma Yingfeng stood on the blood cloud with a puzzled expression. A moment later, a swordfish swam over from the distance and landed in front of Ma Yingfeng. Ma Yingfeng reached out with his hand, and the swordfish turned into a wave and disappeared from his hand. Ma Yingfeng frowned, but he soon relaxed, and a thoughtful look flashed in his eyes. Dong dong, dong, several drumbeats sounded, and the entire arena flashed with a layer of blood-red light. 2 holes appeared on the stone wall as usual, but when the holes appeared, there was no beast roar coming from inside. When the 2 cages flew out, the demons were stunned, and even Xiaohua was stunned on the spot. The 2 cages weren't big, and the one on the left was even smaller. Inside it was Jiang Sheng, who had just left the arena. However, at this moment, Jiang Sheng had already returned to his original size. Furthermore, he was holding a halberd in his hand. In particular, Jiang Sheng's eyes were extremely bright and blood-red. He didn't care that he was covered in blood, and he coldly stared at Ma Yingfeng on the blood cloud. As for the other cage, it was Yuanya, who was wearing a Taoist robe. At this moment, Yuanya was just like Yuanya, who had entered the side door. He had a Qiankuan bag on him, and he held a pair of demonic hammers in his hands. Chapter 39-37. Xiaohua was dumbstruck as he looked at the man and beast. He had never expected the Yazi Gladiator Arena to have such a plan. They actually wanted Yuanya to fight Jiang Sheng. Moreover, he had even returned Jiang Sheng and Yuanya's weapons to them and released their cultivation that had been sealed. This was a life-and-death battle. In this battle, either Yuanya or Jiang Sheng would die. Based on Xiaohua's understanding of the man and beast, the possibility of Yuanya dying was higher. Of course, Jiang Sheng had already fought 2 battles in a row, and was on the verge of exhaustion. Yuanya might not die in Jiang Sheng's hands. But the problem was, What if Yuanya killed Jiangsheng? How would Yuanya face the water tribe of the Paradise River? How would Yuanya face Dragon Lady Jianghong? How would Yuanya explain to Lu Yi? Of course, it was still too early to consider the matter between Lu Yi and Jianghong. However, Xiaohua knew that as long as Yuanya fought with Jiangsheng, his fortune gate and the Paradise River would develop karma that he didn't want to see. The crowd of demon race was equally shocked when they saw a human and a demon come out. These two gladiator beasts were also very powerful. Although it seemed that Yuanya was slightly weaker, it was just as Xiaohua thought. At this time, the strength of the two gladiator beasts was really comparable. All the demon race could not make a decision arbitrarily. Damn it! Xiankong, you're too cunning. A demonic beast expert howled. What choice do you want me to make? Haha! Xiankong's laughter resounded from a corner of the arena. Fellow immortals, weren't you complaining about the unfairness? This old man has now placed fairness in front of you. Why are you complaining about this old man? Everyone, hurry up and place your bets. The exciting battle is about to begin. This old man can't wait to see if the human race is stronger, or the demonic beast race is stronger. Xiaohua narrowed his eyes and coldly looked at the arena. Looking at the beasts who were placing their bets in a mess, a cold light flashed in his eyes. Dong dong, along with the beating of the war drums. Ma Yingfeng waved his hand and opened Yuanya's and Jiangsheng's cages. As soon as the man and the beast rushed out of the cages, they immediately activated their flying techniques and rushed towards each other. Seeing that a tragedy was about to happen, a thunderous roar came from the arena. Ma Yingfeng, hand over your life. As this voice spread out, a ray of sword light that was as bright as thunder appeared. The moment this sword light appeared, there was no other light in the arena. All the demons and humans closed their eyes under this sword light. Within the dazzling sword light, the sword chi that could kill all living things instantly filled the entire arena. Most of the demon race members were so frightened that they trembled all over. As for the few demon race experts who were sitting high up, their demon chi naturally surged as they tried their best to protect their bodies from this unparalleled sword chi. Swoosh! The sword light flashed and landed on the demon array in the center of the arena. Thousands of demon runes scurried around like frightened tadpoles, but at the same time, all the demon runes were neatly cut in half by the sword light. What was special was that the sword chi didn't have much energy left after cutting through the demon runes. It continued to fly towards Ma Yingfeng, who was standing on the blood cloud. At this moment, Ma Yingfeng was the same as all the other demon race members. His eyes were blinded by the sword chi, and his eyes were slightly closed. Just as he released his origin sense, the sword chi had already landed on his head. How is this possible? When did I offend such a powerful opponent? Hearing this, Ma Yingfeng lost all his courage. Under the shroud of the sword energy, the sword intent of the flying sword was like the heavens pressing down. Not to mention Ma Yingfeng's monster body. Even a giant mountain peak would be split in half by this sword intent. Ma Yingfeng's demon body violently trembled under this sword chi. He was extremely shocked and couldn't help but cry out, "General Ao, don't move." Seeing that the sword chi was about to fall, Ma Yingfeng had nowhere to hide. Suddenly, an extremely long crutch stretched out from the stone wall, and Xiankong's voice came. Dong! With a light sound, Ma Yingfeng was sent flying by the crutch. Boom! The flying sword fell. Not only was Xiankong's crutch cut in half, but the ground of the entire arena, including the giant rocks and spikes, were also split by the flying sword. A sword mark of more than 100 feet appeared in an instant. Disciple, don't move. It's master. Yuanya's figure was naturally sent flying by the sword chi. Just as he was surprised, Xiaohua's voice sounded. Yuanya immediately calmed down. Then his body tightened. When he opened his eyes again, his figure was already inside the Kunlun immortal realm. This shocking sword was naturally done by the Confucian cultivator Xiaohua. This was also the first time Xiaohua used it after his sword Dao reached the Desheng level. He didn't expect the power to be so terrifying. After putting away Yuanya, Xiaohua's heart moved, and his mind wrapped around Jiangsheng. Although Jiangsheng was forced back by the sword chi, he stubbornly urged his demonic aura with all his strength. His demonic body once again expanded, wanting to block the sword light. Xiaohua's mind was naturally firmly blocked by Jiangsheng. Xiaohua hurriedly used the monster language to whisper. Jiang Sheng, this old man is an old friend of Jiang Che and Jiang Peng. At the same time, I also know Jiang Hong. They asked me to save you. As soon as he heard Xiaohua say so many names, Jiang Sheng immediately stopped resisting. However, he was still somewhat hesitant and struggling. After all, he already felt the strange force around him. He knew that as long as he fell into it, he would have no power to struggle. Everything would be handed over to this person. Damn it! Seeing that Jiang Sheng was still moving, Xiaohua was anxious. If you want to die, this old man will leave now. Jiang Sheng was helpless and could only stop struggling. Then he felt his body fly up. Then he saw light and shadow flash. He was actually in a celestial mountain. And in front of him was the human who had just appeared in the arena like him. Jiang Sheng was greatly alarmed. He wanted to move again, yet he couldn't. No matter how much strength he used to struggle, he couldn't even budge an inch. However, Yuanya glanced at him indifferently and didn't pay attention to him at all. He walked towards a place on the mountain peak. Where is this? Jiang Sheng was slightly relieved in his heart, yet a cloud of doubt arose. It was also the moment Jiang Sheng resisted that several powerful origin senses swept past from all around the arena and descended onto Xiaohua. Clouds and rosy clouds surged around Xiaohua's body, and he shouted loudly, "This is a personal grudge between this old man and Yuan Jinfeng. It has nothing to do with fellow immortals." As he spoke, Xiaohua raised his hand again. Several sword lights condensed in his hand, and he shouted loudly, "Vile creature, when this old man saw that you were injured earlier, I pitied you in my heart and saved you. Then, I placed you in this old man's home. However, you actually took advantage of the time when this old man left home to swallow my chick and copulate with the female pufferfish I raised. The most infuriating thing is that you actually abandoned a group of pufferfish that were crying piteously for food and fled. If this old man doesn't take your life today, how can I face the female pufferfish that died under the butcher's knife?" As he spoke, the murderous sword light from before appeared once more. Even though the demon race experts weren't afraid of Xiaohua's divine ability, when they heard that it was a personal grudge between Xiaohua and Yuan Jinfeng, and they heard Xiaohua speak clearly about the chick and the female pufferfish, they acted like they were serious and hurriedly withdrew their origin senses and hid at the side. However, Xian Kong and Yuan Jinfeng were puzzled when these words entered their ears. Xian Kong looked at Yuan Jinfeng with surprise, but when his gaze descended onto Yuan Jinfeng's dazed face, he suddenly came to an understanding and recalled what the chick and female pufferfish Xiaohua spoke of were in the eyes of humans. At the same time that Xian Kong thought of this, Yuan Jinfeng naturally came to an understanding as well, and his face instantly turned extremely livid. Wait. At the same time that Xian Kong recovered from his shock, he hurriedly looked towards the other areas of the arena, and Yuanya and Jiang Sheng had vanished a long time ago. Xian Kong hurriedly released his origin sense, but unfortunately, before he could see Xiaohua's face, another brilliant sword light appeared. Xian Kong was greatly shocked and hurriedly cried out, "Second Prince." Actually, there was utterly no need for Xian Kong to shout. At the same time that the sword light appeared, a strand of origin sense swept out from the arena, and a proud and furious voice drifted through the entire arena. "Who dares to cause trouble in this king's arena?" However, this voice was still too late. The sword light shot into the sky, and a wave of rumbling resounded. The demon formation at the entrance that everyone had entered through was slashed apart by the sword light, and the group of demon runes were split into two. Along with a wisp of starlight and the smell of the ocean that poured into the arena, Xiaohua's figure transformed into a strand of watery light that vanished at the flaw of the demon formation. At the same time that Xiaohua's figure swayed, the experts of the demon race that sat high above in the distance had recovered from their shock as well. They practically swung their arms at the exact same time, and their claws tore through space and instantly descended towards the spot where Xiaohua stood just a moment ago. Unfortunately, only strands of water vapor drifted through the air, and they weren't even able to capture a single strand of Xiaohua's hair. Damn it! The experts of the demon race were slightly embarrassed and furious. It wasn't just because Xiaohua had fled right before their eyes, but because Xiaohua was a human while they were demons. When had the human race ever acted so arrogantly before the demon race? Xiaohua's escape wasn't just Xiaohua's problem. It was the human race's provocation towards the demon race. Wu. Strands of demon aura soared into the sky as the figures of several great demons expanded, preparing to chase after Xiaohua. At this moment, a huge dragon flew out from the arena. On that ferocious dragon head, a pair of protruding dragon eyes were spewing out sparks, and the dragon's roaming body emitted an aura that caused the demons to feel dizzy. Seeing the huge dragon flying over, the few great demons didn't dare to snatch and hastily dodged. However, with a loud bang, the huge dragon crashed into the fissure that Xiaohua had just escaped from, creating a hole that was tens of meters in size. In the blink of an eye, the huge dragon had already disappeared by riding on clouds. Chase! As soon as the huge dragon left, the few great demons couldn't bear it any longer. They released their Yuan Shen and rode on demon clouds to chase after the dragon. There was a deathly silence in the arena. For a moment, the entire arena was even more heated than before. After the demonic array of the arena was split open by Xiaohua, and the gate was broken by the dragon, the demonic array of the entire arena was completely destroyed. All the demonic beasts flew up from their seats and rushed towards the huge gap. While flying, the demonic beasts shouted, "Interesting! Interesting!" Chapter 39-38. Haha, there's actually a human who dares to cause trouble in the North Sea Dragon Palace's arena. He must be tired of living. No, that's not right. It's because Ma Yingfeng offended this human. Didn't you hear? He had an affair with his female porpoise and even abandoned it. But then again, what is this female porpoise? Why haven't I heard of it? Is it an extremely powerful demonic beast or an extremely charming demonic beast? Who knows? It's probably a rare demonic beast. Otherwise, why would he chase him all the way to the arena? He even dares to offend the second prince of the North Sea Dragon Palace? It should be. This human sword technique is so high. His demonic beast must be extremely rare too. According to the humans, Ma Yingfeng must have eaten a bear's heart and leopard's guts. In the distance, Ma Yingfeng, who had just flown up from the ground, was about to say something to Xian Kong. When he heard the discussion, his face became even more ashen. He opened his mouth, wanting to argue, but he didn't know what to say. As for Xian Kong, he couldn't hide the smile on his face. However, when he saw all the demonic beasts flying out of the hole, he immediately thought of something and hurriedly called out. Fellow immortals, however, Xian Kong only said these two words before he shut his mouth dejectedly. If these demonic beasts didn't leave, Xian Kong could easily find out who left the arena. There weren't many humans in the Yazi arena. If he investigated carefully, he would be able to find out who gave the auction hall's certificate to Xiaohua. Although there were portraits of Xiao Jian and Yuanya in the North Sea Dragon Palace's battle strategy, as well as Yuanya's record in the Baxia arena, these weren't enough for Xian Kong to find the power behind Xiaohua. Now both the demonic beasts and humans had left. How could Xian Kong find out? However, the huge hole in the arena was personally opened by the second prince of the North Sea Dragon Palace. Xian Kong really wanted to cry, but had no tears. A group of demonic beasts chased out of the arena. When they saw the second prince of the Dragon Palace flying towards the North Sea, they were all surprised. After all, the troublemaker could fly anywhere, but why did he fly to the North Sea? The North Sea was the lair of the second prince of the North Sea Dragon Palace. There was no way he could escape from the second prince. Don't tell me something must be wrong if something was amiss. The demons thought quickly and seemed to have thought of something. Hence, numerous strands of primordial consciousness swept out. However, when their primordial consciousness swept past the second prince, it continued forward, forward, and forward. There was only the boundless sea in front of them. Where was that wretched-looking human? Roar! Just as the demons were wondering what was going on, the second prince raised his head and roared. His dragon body shrunk by half, and he dove into the North Sea. How is that possible? That human actually dove into the water? Could it be that he thinks he can hide from the dragons in the water? Although the demons were wary of the dragon clan, they were not afraid of them. After pondering for a moment, They urged the demon cloud to increase their flying speed. They either dove into the sea to chase after the dragon clan, or chased above the sea surface. However, in the time it took to brew a cup of tea, buzz buzz, the continuous sound of tsunamis came from the sea. Then a huge wave rushed out from the sea. The second prince's huge dragon body soared into the sky. Roar, roar. The dragon's roar resounded for thousands of miles. The layers of dark clouds in the sky were torn apart by the dragon's roar, and rays of sunlight shone through the clouds. No way. The demons chasing after the second prince were shocked. Could it be that the human actually escaped the second prince's primordial consciousness? That human is actually the literary sage of Confucianism? The second prince of the dragon palace rushed into the sky. The huge dragon body shrunk rapidly and gradually transformed into a human form. The second prince was wearing a golden chainmail and a purple gold crown on his head. Above the ferocious dragon head, a pair of huge dragon eyes were bloodshot. The second prince of the dragon palace turned around. His eyes were like lightning. He opened his mouth and roared to the surroundings. Within 100 miles, the winds and clouds were swirling. Several experts of the demon clan hurriedly dodged. Pa pa pa, a series of explosions came from the surface of the experts of the demon clan. Within 100 miles, whether it was in the air or at the bottom of the sea, countless explosions came one after another. It was more intense than pouring cold water into a pot of oil. While the experts of the demon clan were dodging, their hearts were as clear as a mirror. The second prince of the dragon palace must have lost the human, and he must have lost him long ago. Otherwise, the dragon's roar would have made him appear within 100 miles. Just as the demons were thinking, a blurry human figure suddenly appeared 100 miles away. However, it was like a mirage, disappearing in a flash. Damn it! The second prince of the dragon palace had already noticed it. He did not have time to transform into a dragon and chased after Xiaohua again. The dragon palace really has a lot of secret skills. In the distance, Xiaohua used the water escape technique to escape. At the same time, he used the secret skill of the Heavenly Abode River to cover his breath. That day, Jiang Che of the Heavenly Abode River hid beside Ao Zhan with this secret skill, and was not discovered by Ao Zhan. Xiaohua was so far away from the second prince of the dragon palace. How could he be discovered? Moreover, among all the skills that Xiaohua had learned, there was only one divine sense that surpassed the second prince of the dragon palace. It must be the Taoist escape technique. Therefore, the water escape technique that Xiaohua used was not inferior to the second prince of the dragon palace. If the second prince had not suddenly stopped and turned around to use the secret skill of the dragon clan, Xiaohua's diversion tactic would have succeeded. However, even if Xiaohua was temporarily discovered by the second prince of the dragon palace, Xiaohua was not afraid at all. The fluctuation of his soul awareness flowed like water waves, washing away the primordial thoughts of the second prince of the dragon palace and other experts of the demon clan. His figure quickly rushed to Yuling Bay. Damn it, damn it, damn it. The second prince of the dragon palace cursed angrily. He used the secret skill of the dragon clan one by one, trying to distinguish Xiaohua's trace. However, Xiaohua was like a slippery loach. It seemed that he was there, but no matter where his primordial thoughts or secret skills fell, they were all empty. Seeing that Yuling Bay was not far away, the second prince of the dragon palace had a bad feeling. After all, the human clan and the demon clan were mixed in Yuling Bay. Although there were not many human clan members, to search one by one was like looking for a needle in a haystack. Not to mention a practitioner like Xiaohua. As long as he relaxed for a moment, his trace would have been thousands of miles away. It was impossible to find him. Just as the second prince of the dragon palace had a bad feeling, the primordial thoughts in the distance immediately became abnormal. Previously, he could still feel a trace of Xiaohua, but now it was empty. There was no perception, just like before when he lost track of Xiaohua. At this moment, the second prince of the dragon palace suddenly realized that it was not he who had been chasing Xiaohua, but Xiaohua who had been leading him by the nose. Xiaohua could escape his detection at any time. When the second prince of the dragon palace realized this, a golden light flashed between his eyes. A stream of dragon chi rose from the golden light. The second prince of the Dragon Palace gave up on the direction of Yuling Bay and swept to the left and right sea. However, when he hurriedly looked around, there was a sudden dragon roar, and the nearby space boiled again. However, it was a pity that the bubbles disappeared one after another without revealing the slightest trace of abnormality. Roar, the second prince of the Dragon Palace, was furious. He suddenly waved his dragon tail behind him, turning it into a huge iron rod, and hit the sea. Boom! The sea was pushed forward by him, and huge waves of hundreds of feet high. Several nearby ships were tottering in the waves. A group of demon clan members on the ships were so frightened by the second prince's dragon chi that they collapsed on the deck and trembled. After the second prince vented his anger, he sped up and rushed to Yuling Bay not far away. His gaze swept to the place where Xiaohua might have fallen. The second prince's figure was like lightning. Just as he was about to rush into Yuling Bay, he suddenly stopped and turned to look at the place where he flew past. It was one of the 5 mountain ranges of Yuling Bay that looked like 5 fingers reaching into the North Sea. At the end of the mountain range, there was a protruding cliff. Usually, hundreds of seagulls would soar and rest here. However, at this time there was not a single seagull to be seen. Except for the whistling of the sea wind, it was terrifyingly quiet. The second prince frowned slightly. He looked at Yuling Bay not far away in the morning light, and hesitated for a moment before flying toward the cliff. After the second prince, the 3 demon race cultivators flew over separately. However, they didn't get too close. They just stood in 3 different directions of the cliff, blocking the way to the North Sea. It was as if they were preventing anyone from escaping from the cliff. At the same time, in the direction of Yuling Bay, squads of armored prawn soldiers and crab generals also flew over, gradually blocking the other direction of the cliff. The top of the cliff was very barren. Only a few thumb-sized plants grew tenaciously in the sea breeze. These plants grew out from the cracks of the large rocks. Apart from the dark green rust spots on the large rocks, there were also patches of grayish-white bird droppings. There was simply too much bird droppings, layer upon layer. The outermost layer of bird droppings was slowly lifted by the whistling sea wind, blown away by the wind. Among the rocks, there was a small stone house. This stone house was completely built from the rocks on the cliff. Although it was not piled up perfectly, it was enough to block the sea wind. However, the second prince's gaze did not linger on this stone house for long. He only glanced at it before sweeping past, landing on the cliff that was sheltered from the wind. However, at this moment, a black shadow suddenly flashed from the stone house. A woman with dark skin walked out from inside. This woman had a graceful figure. When she walked, her waist swayed like a willow tree, as if she had no bones. Although this woman was wearing clothes, the skin exposed outside of her clothes was clearly covered in scales. What was special was that although the woman's rough face had been transformed to the best of her ability, her scarlet tongue was still in the shape of a snake's forked tongue, involuntarily flicking here and there. There was almost no emotion in those pitch-black eyes. Wasn't this woman the snake demon that Xiaohua had seen in the sky above Yuling Bay last night? Chapter 39-39. Looking at the woman who had just walked out of the stone house, she immediately felt that something was wrong. She looked at the second prince, and the expression on her face changed drastically. She stood there in a daze, and her entire body trembled like a sieve. She almost fell to the ground. The snake species' natural submission to the dragon clan was involuntarily revealed. "Wife!" A weak voice sounded from inside the stone house. He seemed to have noticed the abnormality and hurriedly asked, "What happened to you?" Nothing. "Husband, you must not come out." The woman's voice was a bit shrill, and even had a hissing sound. However, in the midst of the woman's voice, there was a slightly dragging sound of footsteps. A man in strange clothes walked out of the stone house. This man had a head full of white hair and 2 big and lifeless eyes. His hands were stretched out in front of him, groping left and right. Obviously, he was blind. When the man touched the snake demon's trembling body, he said in surprise, "Wife, why are you so cold? Quickly put on these clothes." As he spoke, the blind man hurriedly took off his clothes and touched the woman, wanting to help her put on her clothes. No need, husband." Facing the second prince of the Dragon Palace, The woman could not restrain her body from trembling. However, she still hurriedly shouted, "The wind is strong here, you quickly put on your clothes." Humph! The second prince of the dragon palace snorted and looked at the woman and the demon with extreme disgust. The dragon breath from his mouth and nose blew past, creating a fierce wind that blew away the clothes in the man's hands. Such a strong wind, the old man said and hurriedly pulled the woman's arm. "Wife, quickly come back to hide from the wind." The snake demon did not dare to move. She hurriedly pushed the man and said, "Husband, don't worry about me, quickly go back, damn thing. You actually dare to conspire with a human." The shrimp soldiers and crab soldiers in the distance had already approached. When Ma Yingfeng saw this, he unconsciously thought of Xiao Hua's slander in the arena, and his heart burned with anger. He waved the trident in his hand and stabbed it towards the trembling snake spirit woman. The woman was shocked and wanted to dodge. However, when she saw the man still holding her arm, she gritted her teeth and tilted her body to block the man. Her body met the trident head-on. "Are you crazy?" At this moment, a lazy voice came from the place where the second prince of Dragon Palace was looking. "They are a loving couple. I envy them. Why do you want to break them apart? If you break them up, then I won't even have a neighbor." Following this voice, a huge black shadow rushed out from that place and blocked the three-pronged fork. When Ma Yingfeng saw that the three-pronged fork had wings that seemed to be cast from copper and iron, he couldn't help but be greatly alarmed. "Fellow immortal, where did you come from?" The second prince of Dragon Palace was not surprised. He looked at the origin of the wings with interest and asked, "When will we arrive at Yuling Bay? Why didn't I know that there was a powerful demon race expert on this cliff?" Haha, this old man came from where he came from, and in the future, I will return to the same place. I just stayed in Yuling Bay for a few years. I don't need to disturb so many fellow immortals, right? As he spoke, a demon race of more than 30 meters flew out from the foot of the mountain. This demon race was now in human form. On his head, which was several feet in size, there was a pair of bright eyes flashing with a sharp gaze. Two long eyebrows were slanted into his sideburns like sharp swords. His slightly bulging mouth and nose revealed faint red lips and white teeth. The demon's wings were surging with demon aura, and a pair of naked arms with bulging muscles could be vaguely seen amidst the demon aura. What was blocking the sharp weapons was the shadow of one of the demon's wings. "I'm Ao Jing, the second prince of North Sea Dragon Palace." The second prince pondered for a moment and cupped his hands. "How should I address you, fellow immortal?" "Oh, it's the second prince." The demon race suddenly realized and laughed. "I'm Fengwu. As for where I come from, haha, it's just an unknown place in the Thousand Demons sacred realm. It's not comparable to the North Sea Dragon Palace. Let's not talk about it." "So it's fellow immortal Fengwu." Ao Jing laughed. "I wonder if I'm lucky enough to invite fellow immortal to Yuling Palace for a chat?" I'm not going. Fengwu flapped his wings and said, "If I wanted to go, I would have gone a few years ago. Since I'm not going, I can only disappoint the second prince." "Fine. Since fellow immortal doesn't like to be disturbed, I won't mention this matter." Facing Fengwu, an unfamiliar demon, Ao Jing acutely sensed that this demon of the Phoenix bloodline was exceptionally powerful. He couldn't help but restrain his arrogance as he smiled and said, "However, this king would like to ask you, did you sense a human cultivator who concealed himself and passed by here just now?" "Hee, second prince really overestimates my strength." Fengwu laughed. "How can I see a human race cultivator that even second prince can't catch up with? Damn human race." At the mention of Xiao Hua, an inexplicable anger appeared on Ao Jing's face. He turned his head to look at the snake spirit and the old man in the stone house and said sternly, "Evil creature, what's the matter with you? If you don't explain clearly, I'll take your life right now." "Second prince, please spare my life." The snake spirit almost fell to the ground and said anxiously, "Su Lang is this lowly concubine's savior. This lowly concubine doesn't know how to repay him, so I want to accompany him for the rest of my life." "Lowly concubine. You're really good at saying the word human race." Ao Jing laughed sinisterly. "This man is just weak. How can he save you? Aren't you deceiving me? I'll let second prince know." The snake spirit didn't dare to be negligent and hurriedly said, "When Su Lang was young, this lowly concubine was chased by an enemy and turned into a small snake. It was winter at that time. This lowly concubine was frozen into a popsicle and was about to freeze to death. Su Lang just happened to come back from the academy and happened to meet this lowly concubine. He was careful and kind. When he saw that this lowly concubine was frozen by the winter snow, he hid this lowly concubine in his arms. After a night of warmth, this lowly concubine finally woke up. This lowly concubine didn't dare to stay in Su Lang's house for long, and hurriedly flew underground to hibernate. When this lowly concubine recovered the next year, this lowly concubine went to find Su Lang to repay his kindness. However, when this lowly concubine found Su Lang, this lowly concubine found out that because this lowly concubine didn't know how to restrain the poison in her body when she was seriously injured, Su Lang was poisoned by this lowly concubine when he saved this lowly concubine. Although this lowly concubine was saved by the human race's physician, Su Lang was still blind. This lowly concubine felt that there was nothing this lowly concubine could do to repay him, so I pretended to be a wandering village woman and married into the Su family, pledging my life to you. When Su Lang grew old and no longer had anything to worry about at home, this lowly concubine brought Su Lang out to fulfill his long-cherished wish of traveling 10,000 li instead of reading 10,000 books. When I arrived at the Northern Sea, Su Lang was already old and couldn't walk anymore. Therefore, this lowly concubine built a house here and accompanied him on his last journey. "Wife, what are you talking about?" The man in the house was very puzzled when he heard the crooked demon language outside the house. However, he was also familiar with the woman's voice and couldn't help but ask in surprise, "Who is outside? We've been here for so long, but we've never had any neighbors come to visit. Could it be that it's our neighbors?" Ga Shi Jinfeng sneered and changed the demon language in the air into human language. He mocked, "Wife, do you know what your wife is? She's just a snake spirit. Do you know where you live? This is a cliff that goes deep into the Northern Sea. In the past, there were many seabirds here, but now, not a single seabird can be seen. Do you know where these seabirds went? They were all swallowed by your snake spirit wife. Where did you get this neighborhood from?" Hearing Ao Jing's words, the house was silent at first. In the end, that man cried out in shock, Wife, who is this person? Is what he said true? Aren't you an orphan of the Bai family? How did you become a snake spirit? How is this possible?" "Husband." A trace of sorrow appeared in the woman's previously emotionless eyes. This sorrow was especially obvious in the pitch-black snake eyes. Feng Wu frowned and glared at Shi Jinfeng with some displeasure. Shi Jinfeng's heart shrank as fear appeared in his heart. At this moment, he finally understood why his prince was so courteous to this demon with a phoenix body. It wasn't just because Feng Wu was powerful. "My wife. Say something. I don't believe what this person said." That man pressed. Are you a human or a demon?" The snake spirit woman hesitated for a moment and said, "Husband, is it important whether this lowly concubine is a human or a demon?" Unfortunately, that old man with the surname Su didn't answer. After a moment, the snake spirit woman said with some sorrow, "Husband, do you still remember the story of the little snake that this concubine often told you?" "Of course I remember." That man's voice trembled. You often told this story to me. I thought you were comforting me. Could it be?" The man's voice was somewhat fearful. "Wife was also replaced with you." The woman straightened her waist with difficulty and turned her head to look sadly at the stone house. She had accompanied this man for dozens of years. Although she was a demon, she understood the man's thoughts from the change in his tone. "Damn it, this is ridiculous." Ao Jing couldn't help but ridicule. "You've shared a bed for dozens of years and you don't even know what your wife is. Have you spent your nights like this for dozens of years?" Hearing Ao Jing's words, Shi Jinfeng smiled and said, "This muddle-headed brother, perhaps you haven't been able to touch your wife's delicate skin at night before. Then why don't you touch it properly now?" Whether it was Ao Jing or Shi Jinfeng, after being played by Xiaohua, they couldn't help but feel resentment. They couldn't find Xiaohua, and when facing other weak people, they also had the heart to play with them. This kind of despicable person existed in both the human race and the demon race. Sure enough, the sound of light footsteps came from inside the stone house. Husband, that snake spirit was greatly alarmed and cried out miserably, You can't. Chapter 39-40. However, the footsteps were still so resolute, not shaken by the snake spirit's panic. Feng Wu's expression changed as he watched from nearby. This Feng Wu was naturally Xiaohua's transformation. In fact, it wasn't much of a transformation. Xiaohua only needed to slightly reveal the heavenly phoenix within his body, and that was enough to scare Ao Jing and the other dragons. Feng Wu could stop Ma Jinfeng from killing the snake spirit, but he couldn't stop the man from walking out of the stone house. Moreover, although Ao Jing and Ma Jinfeng were clearly trying to sow discord, the hand that would reveal the truth was on the man. The man had the right to know the truth, and Xiaohua had no right to stop him. The man's figure appeared, and his hand slowly approached the snake spirit's body. The snake spirit's body trembled slightly, and slowly moved, trying to dodge. However, the man didn't give up, and followed the direction of the snake spirit's movement again. The snake spirit's body trembled violently for a moment before suddenly stopping. She looked at the man's resolute face with a hint of sadness in her eyes, and a look of desperation appeared in her eyes. The snake spirit no longer dodged. She raised her illusory hand slightly and held the man's hand. The man hurriedly touched the snake spirit's arm, and the panic on his face faded slightly. However, the snake spirit immediately pulled his hand, and bit by bit, it moved upwards, towards the place where the scales hadn't transformed. The man's arm trembled slightly, and he was somewhat hesitant, but also somewhat resolute. The distance of less than a foot actually took a full half a cup of tea's time. Not to mention the howling sea breeze. Even the crowd of demons and shrimp soldiers and crab generals stopped moving, as if they were waiting for some kind of outcome. The man's hand finally touched the snake spirit's ice-cold scales, and the moment he touched the scales, the coldness struck the man like a bolt of lightning. The man's arm trembled, and his entire body twitched. His face revealed disbelief, and his empty eyes seemed to flash with spirit, as if he had seen many things. However, the man's mouth seemed to say you, and it was unknown what he wanted to say. And then, there was no more. Then the man collapsed on the ground, white foam coming out of his mouth. In just a few breaths, the breath he breathed out was less than the breath he breathed in. The snake spirit looked coldly at the man's hand, which was now firmly gripping a piece of scale on the snake spirit's body. Even in the face of death, he did not loosen his grip. The man died. His grayish-white eyes stared fixedly at the sky, as if he had died with his eyes wide open. His hand was still stretched out, strangling the snake spirit's scales. The snake spirit raised her hand, and with a crack, she broke off the scale. The man's hand fell to the ground. The snake spirit reached out to cover the man's eyes and said in a low voice, Su Lang, I thought that after accompanying you for your entire life, I had already become your true love in your heart. You wouldn't care about my demon body anymore. Actually, there are many times when I want to tell you the truth. I want to know if you care that I'm a snake spirit, but I'm afraid of seeing something I don't want to see. I thought that once we reached this place, I would be able to accompany you to the end of the journey and let you have a perfect ending. But the heavens want me to know what you're thinking. Stories are just stories. The more I tell them, the more you listen to them. What I ask and what you answer are not reality. When the illusion had become a thing of the past, when you really faced reality, you actually couldn't believe that you were actually scared to death by your first wife who had accompanied you for decades, and that you were actually scared to death by your first wife who had taken care of you all your life. The ending of this story is really laughable. Su Lang, how can you make me believe in the affection of this world? Demons will always be demons. What's the point of talking about feelings with humans? Ao Jing was also surprised by this unexpected ending, but seeing the snake spirit so sad, he couldn't help but sneer. Maybe it's time to end it. The snake spirit waved her hand and picked up the man's corpse. She looked at Ao Jing indifferently. Although she was still afraid, she still asked, Can this concubine go now? Go. Ao Jing waved his hand. Xiaohua asked strangely, Where are you taking this human's corpse? After a human dies, it's important to be buried in peace. This concubine will bury him. The snake spirit looked at Xiaohua and replied. Alas, go. Xiaohua flapped his wings and sighed. This old man should also go. After staying here for a few years, I didn't expect that you two would have such an ending. It's really beyond this old man's expectations. This old man often heard humans say that the world in people's hearts is often the most perfect. Many people don't dare to open their eyes and face reality, because the world in front of them is too cruel. There are too many unsatisfactory things. This kid surnamed Su seems to be a pure and kind person from his speech and behavior. He even helped my demon race since he was young. Unfortunately, a pure and kind person is not necessarily a wise and brave person. His eyes are blind, and his heart is even more blind. After he finished speaking, Xiaohua spread his wings and a whirlwind appeared. Xiaohua's body turned into a phoenix that was dozens of feet long. As his wings danced, demonic clouds lingered around him. The clouds flickered and his demonic body instantly flew a few miles away, gradually disappearing into the sea breeze. Second prince seeing Xiaohua fly away, Ma Yingfeng whispered, "This Feng Wu is a demon expert. You alas, if not for today's matter, we could have become friends." Ao Jing smiled bitterly. After watching Xiaohua fly away, the snake spirit also rolled up the demonic clouds and went inland. He whispered, "Since this matter has happened, let's wait for another chance." Yes. Ma Yingfeng nodded. He then looked at the several demon experts in the distance and whispered. This subordinate suddenly thought of something. That human who escaped. Was he the Confucian cultivator, who took out the Immortal Palace's token? Should this subordinate, and the others search Yuling Bay? Naturally we have to search. This Confucian cultivator actually dared to ruin my North Sea Dragon Palace's matter. We can't let him go easily. Ao Jing nodded. However, it's hard to say whether this human is from the Immortal Palace or not. After all, the Immortal Palace's people have already revealed their identities. He can't directly attack my North Sea Dragon Palace. But then again, the human race is best at creating a diversion. He revealed his identity and thought that we wouldn't suspect him. Then he saved Jiangsheng. He used Jiangsheng to provoke the dragon palaces of the four seas, so that the Immortal Palace could benefit. At this point, Ma Yingfeng continued in a low voice. Also, Baxia 47869, who fought with Jiangsheng, was also rescued by a Confucian cultivator. This Confucian cultivator disguised as a Taoist cultivator must be related to Baxia 47869. Yes, that's possible. Ao Jing nodded. Check Baxia's records and see if you can find any clues. Actually, there are no more than a few possibilities. One is that the remnants of the Heavenly Abode River asked the Confucian cultivator to help. They borrowed Baxia's power to sneak into the arena and save Jiangsheng. The first possibility was that the Confucian cultivator wanted to save Baxia and Jiangsheng along the way. Another is that the Confucian cultivator knew these two and saved them at the same time. Yes, Your Highness's analysis is very reasonable. Ma Yingfeng smiled. No matter what, this Confucian cultivator disguised himself as a Taoist cultivator and came to my arena with bad intentions. No, if that Confucian cultivator wanted to save Jiangsheng, he could have just entered the arena. Why did he drag Baxia into it? Also, if he wanted to make a move, he could have done it before Jiangsheng's fight. Why wait until Jiangsheng and Baxia make their move? Ao Jing suddenly realized something, shock appearing on his face. Could it be that the Confucian cultivator wanted to save Baxia, and Jiangsheng was just doing it in passing? Damn it. Ao Jing anxiously said. Ma Jinfeng, you're right. Quickly go and investigate the background of this Baxia 47-86-9. Since he's Baxia 47-86-9, he's from the Baxia arena. Why would he come to my Yazi arena? Could it be? Ma Yingfeng smiled bitterly at Ao Jing's words. He naturally knew about Xian Kong's arrangements, but how could he dare to tell Ao Jing? Then, what about the Immortal Palace? Ma Yingfeng asked in a low voice. Investigate? Of course we have to investigate. Ao Jing sneered. I can't find the Confucian cultivator or the Taoist cultivator, but I can still find the human in Yuling Bay. Let's see if I can't turn Yuling Bay upside down. Unfortunately, no matter how powerful Ao Jing was, even if he turned Yuling Bei upside down, it would be impossible for him to find traces of Xiao Hua, because Xiao Hua turned into a phoenix and flew away right in front of him. This was something that Ao Jing had never dreamed of. A heavenly phoenix with a monstrous aura, whose bloodline was even purer than his, the second prince of the North Sea Dragon Palace, was actually the human Confucian cultivator he was looking for. Xiao Hua's heavenly phoenix demonic body spread its wings and soared along with the sea breeze. Looking at the vast sky and the boundless North Sea, a rare kind of comfort involuntarily emerged from the bottom of its heart. Xiao Hua opened its mouth and let out a phoenix cry. This sound resounded through the sky. Not only did it shatter the clouds, it even stirred up the seawater in the vicinity of several dozen li layer upon layer of waves, with Xiao Hua as the center, spread out in all directions. It looked like a medium-sized storm had already begun to form. Awesome! Awesome! Xiao Hua enjoyed the flight and couldn't help but think to himself. No wonder the ancients said, "Great Peng rises with the wind one day, soaring up 90,000 li." This poem is refreshing to read, but when I really fly, the feeling is even more inconceivable. Freedom is just like this, to swim freely in the universe, to soar between heaven and earth, to be unrestrained, to do as one pleases. This kind of freedom should be the end of my cultivation. In the future, not to mention the carefree domain, even the void-shattering realm will be as relaxed and free as this. After flying for less than half an hour, in addition to the boundless sea of clouds, there was only the boundless blue sea. Xiao Hua knew that he couldn't fly deeper into the North Sea. He released his soul consciousness and looked around. After confirming that there were no demons following him, and there was no demon expert's consciousness, he returned to his original appearance. Then he took out the Pegasus and flying carriage. Relying on his terrible sense of direction, he urged the flying carriage to fly to another place in the hidden immortal continent. Chapter 3941. Xiao Hua urged the Pegasus to sit inside the flying carriage. He secretly pondered over his actions along the way, and felt that there was nothing inappropriate. Only then did his mind enter the space to check and sort out the gains of this auction. After nearly an hour, Xiao Hua felt that it was about time and released his soul consciousness. Sure enough, at the edge of his soul consciousness he saw the appearance of land. Moreover, there was no bay or human figure on this land. It was not Yuling Bei at all. This naturally didn't exceed Xiao Hua's expectations. He calmly put away the flying chariot and Pegasus, then used the water escape technique to reach the shore. He raised his hand and took the mountain river seal in his hand, then released Jiang Sheng from the space. Jiang Sheng had been standing in the space like a wooden chicken. Suddenly he felt his body tighten and could move again. He hastily waved the sky piercer and guarded left and right. When he saw Xiao Hua, he could not help but be stunned. The sky piercer pointed at Xiao Hua and stood there in a daze. Jiang Sheng. Xiao Hua did not dare to waste time and said in the demon language, "This Xiao rescued you from the Yazi arena. That North Sea Dragon Palace's second prince, Ao Jing, has been chasing after you. I'm afraid you have the North Sea Dragon Palace's warrior slave seal on your body. This Xiao wants to help you get rid of it first. Don't resist." Okay. Jiang Sheng was not a fool. He did not ask why Xiao Hua knew the demon language, nor did he ask why Xiao Hua's cultivation was so high at this time. He only gave a simple reply. Xiao Hua patted his forehead and used the illusion breaker eye. Those silver-white eyes looked around Jiang Sheng's body. Jiang Sheng felt a chill coming from his body. It was as if those expressionless eyes saw through his body from the inside out. Don't move, don't resist. Just as Jiang Sheng could not help but tremble slightly, several layers of dark green brilliance gushed out from between Xiao Hua's eyebrows again. The soul strands that were hard to see with the naked eye split into several strands and entered Jiang Sheng's body. When the soul strands touched Jiang Sheng's body, the body naturally resisted. Jiang Sheng hurriedly dispersed the defense of the body. Those soul strands instantly penetrated Jiang Sheng's blood vessels. Huh. In just a moment, Xiao Hua frowns and says in surprise, "The North Sea Dragon Palace's slave warrior seal is really something. No wonder. No, this isn't the slave warrior seal. However, several strange waves flashed with a faint brilliance as they strangely wandered within Jiang Sheng's blood vessels. Although Xiaohua's delusion-breaker eyes could see them, his soul strands could not capture these waves. It was not as simple as when Xiaohua saw Xian Kong use the dragon stratagem to extract the warrior-slave seal from Yuanya's body. At this point, how could Xiaohua not know that the North Sea Dragon Palace's imprint in Jiang Sheng's body was far from something the warrior-slave imprint could compare to? When Xiaohua frowned slightly, the soul strands have already retracted. Another layer of green light appeared between his eyebrows. It was Xiaohua's washing heaven and earth technique. As soon as the green light appeared, it immediately turned into a green seal text. This green seal text fell into Jiang Sheng's body, causing a burst of rather simple sound. This sound in Jiang Sheng's ears seemed to be born from his body. Jiang Sheng only felt his blood vessels rapidly surging, as if there were thousands of small hands in his blood vessels grabbing him at the same time. In just a moment, Jiang Sheng suddenly felt his body become light. Xiaohua's voice sounded in his ears again. Jiang Sheng, this Xiao removing the North Sea Dragon Palace's imprint has attracted Ao Jing's attention. Don't move, this Xiao will take you and fly away. When Jiang Sheng heard this, he was a little unhappy, but before he could react, Xiaohua stretched out his hand and grabbed his neck. A wisp of fire flashed, and Xiaohua's figure disappeared with Jing Sheng. Poor Jiang Sheng was born with divine strength, but he had gone through several battles and almost died in the arena. How could he resist Xiaohua's tiger and wolf hands now? He was held in Xiaohua's hand like a little chick. In the time it took to eat a meal, clouds of fire appeared in the sky. A fire dragon roared and flew out of the fire clouds. The huge dragon had hung down from the sky with a ferocious look. Its eyes, which were comparable to flying swords, swept across the place where Xiaohua and Jiang Sheng had just stood. Then the fire dragon roared and sniffed around a few times. Hurricanes swept across the ground, lifting pieces of gravel. This fire dragon was naturally Ao Jing. Xiaohua removing the imprint in Jiang Sheng's blood vessels immediately aroused Ao Jing's vigilance. Ao Jing didn't have time to inform Xian Kong and the other dragon generals. He first transformed into a dragon and chased over. However, he was still too late. Except for a trace of the North Sea Dragon Palace's imprint, there was nothing left here. How is this possible? Who dares to remove the demon imprisoning knot of my North Sea Dragon Palace on the side of the North Sea? Ao Jing was furious. He opened his mouth and spat out a raging fire, burning an area of several miles. This Confucian cultivator, other than someone from the Immortal Palace, how could he have such a powerful method? A Taoist cultivator? A Confucian cultivator? It's just a smokescreen from the Immortal Palace. They want to trick me. Damn it, I'll definitely report this to my father. How dare they destroy the North Sea Dragon Palaces, plan to lure the enemy. Ao Jing cursed angrily for a moment. He was already furious and had lost all sense of reason. The decision he had made calmly earlier was now nothing but bullshit in his eyes. He flew up and was about to return when Xian Kong hurriedly chased after him with some shrimp soldiers and crab generals. Ao Jing snorted coldly. He ignored Xian Kong and swayed his dragon tail as he flew towards Yuling Bay. On the other hand, Xian Kong stopped in midair. He glanced at the flames on the ground that hadn't been extinguished and the ground that had been charred yellow. And then he sighed and waved his hand. Everyone returned to Feather Spirit Bay. However, before he could fly 100 feet, he hurriedly stopped and looked into the distance respectfully. After a moment, a ferocious smile appeared on his face. He ordered, "Pass down the second prince's order. Track down the people from the Immortal Palace with all our strength. If you find any trace of them, report it immediately." Yes. The shrimp soldiers and crab generals all scattered and went in different directions. Xian Kong set up a demon cloud and followed Ao Jing back to Yuling Bay. Ao Jing thought that the Confucian cultivator in his eyes had already left Yuling Bay with Jiang Sheng. However, he didn't know that he had already been lured away by Xiaohua. Xiaohua only flew for a moment before he asked Jiang Sheng for the direction of Yuling Bay. He turned and flew towards Yuling Bay. Just as Ao Jing was getting angry, Xiaohua had already flown to the left side of Yuling Bay. Xiaohua's figure landed between some mountain peaks. He put down Jiang Sheng and narrowed his eyes as he looked in the direction of Yuling Bay. Previously, Xiaohua had left in a hurry and didn't have time to put the green-robed Xiaohua into the space. At this moment, the green-robed Xiaohua had already sensed Xiaohua's arrival. He had urged the formless Yuanying to return. Xiaohua turned to Jiang Sheng and said, Jiang Sheng, you must have recognized me. I'm the Taoist cultivator who fought against you when you flooded Longevity Town that year. In order to find Dragon Lady Jiang Hong in Longevity Town, you didn't hesitate to use the water of Liao River and treat the people of the human race as weeds. I shouldn't have saved you, but because you were eager to save your master, and because I have some fate with Jiang Hong, the people of Longevity Town didn't lose too many lives because of you. I saved you from the hands of the North Sea Dragon Palace. Your Heavenly Abode River scheme is too big, so I don't dare to get involved easily. You know what happened today, and you don't need to worry about my kindness. You can go by yourself. Let's not meet again. As he spoke, the green-robed Xiaohua had already flown over. Xiaohua withdrew his yuanying and the green-robed Xiaohua entered his body. Xiaohua instantly had a clear understanding of the situation after he left. Thus he said to Jiang Sheng, "Oh right, I heard that the North Sea Dragon Palace has already sent out shrimp soldiers and crab generals to search for you and me. I won't be returning to Yuling Bay anymore. You don't have to go either." After he finished speaking, Xiaohua urged his magic power, and was about to flee into the distance. However, before his figure could disappear, Jiang Sheng's words made him stand there in a daze. Jiang Hong fell into the hands of the North Sea Dragon Palace with me. Jiang Sheng said, his words like gold. What? Xiaohua turned his head and asked in disbelief. Jiang Hong is your family's dragon princess. How did she fall into the hands of the North Sea Dragon Palace with you? How did you protect your princess? Jiang Sheng wasn't surprised by Xiaohua's reproach. He even blushed a little as he explained in a low voice. I escorted my family's princess to Yuling Bay to meet with Jiang Che and the others. Unfortunately, before he could finish, Xiaohua waved his hand coldly. Forget it. The matter of your Heavenly Abode River has nothing to do with me. Who captured Jiang Hong? I won't. Just like how he interrupted Jiang Sheng's words, Xiaohua was unable to continue speaking at this point. Lu Yi saw Jiang Hong as his own sister. He would rather suffer than let Jiang Hong get hurt. Lu Yi was his favorite disciple. If Jiang Hong was captured by the North Sea Dragon Palace, her ending was needless to say. If she wasn't a princess, she would have been sent to the arena to die like Jiang Sheng. If he didn't rescue Jiang Hong, how would he face Lu Yi in the future? Seeing that Xiaohua didn't speak, Jiang Sheng said, Jiang Che and the others are in Yuling Bay. If you don't want to do it directly, please send me to Flowing Lightning Residence. Xiaohua looked at Jiang Sheng from head to toe. At this moment, Jiang Sheng's physical injuries were still very serious. It was impossible for Jiang Sheng to safely find Jiang Che by himself. Even if he didn't want to save Jiang Hong, he should send Jiang Sheng to Flowing Lightning Residence. Moreover, how could he not try to save Jiang Hong? Forget it. Xiaohua smiled bitterly. For my disciples' happiness, I can only be a good person again. Xiaohua said this in human language. He didn't want Jiang Sheng to hear it, so Jiang Sheng didn't understand. But looking at Xiaohua's expression, Jiang Sheng knew Xiaohua's choice. Then Xiaohua took out the mountain and river seal and said, Ao Jing should be back soon. Come in. When I find Flowing Lightning Residence, I'll let you out. Thank you, fellow immortal Xiao, Jiang Sheng said with a smile. He wasn't surprised by Xiaohua's help. Chapter 3942. Xiaohua shook the mountain river seal and retrieved Jiang Sheng. He then activated his flying technique and flew towards Feather Spirit Bay. Not long after, Xiaohua arrived at the place where he met the snake spirit. Looking at the familiar place, Xiaohua sighed. In just one night, so many things had happened, which made Xiaohua realize a lot. At this time, Yuling Bay was different from before. Whether it was humans or demons, there were much fewer people. The shops and tents were equally desolate. Xiaohua identified the direction and landed on the ground. Seeing a Confucian cultivator hurriedly flying by, he hurriedly stepped forward and cupped his hands. Greetings, fellow immortal. That Confucian cultivator looked at Xiaohua and said coldly, What do you want? Sorry to disturb you, fellow immortal. May I know where Flowing Thunder residence is? Xiaohua didn't get angry and asked with a smile. Flowing Thunder residence? I don't know. Hearing this, that Confucian cultivator waved his hand and flew away without thinking. Damn it, we're all humans. Even if we're different, there's no need to be like this. Xiaohua sneered, and then he looked left and right. After that, he flew over a few hundred meters and blocked the path of a leopard spirit that was similarly riding a demonic cloud. Fellow Immortal, I wonder if Fellow Immortal knows of the Lightning Flow residence? Flowing Thunder residence. That leopard spirit's yellow eyes turned a few times as if he was thinking. Then he shook his head and said, I don't know. You'd better ask other demons. Seeing the leopard spirit hurriedly leave, Xiaohua pinched his chin and became anxious. It can't be right? I don't know one, I don't know two. This Jiangshan can't be lying to me, right? Looking around, Xiaohua walked into a small tent. The inside of the tent was similar to a shop, but it was very small and there weren't many things. Seeing Xiaohua enter, a shrimp-like member of the sea race hurriedly greeted him and said with a smile, Fellow Immortal, what do you want to choose? Xiaohua looked at those ordinary pearls and said with a smile, I don't want to buy anything, I just want to ask for directions. Hee, Fellow Immortal, please tell me. The shrimp-like member's attitude was very good. Does Fellow Immortal know Flowing Thunder residence? Xiaohua said. Seeing the sea shrimp's hesitant appearance, Xiaohua started to feel apprehensive. Sure enough, the sea shrimp shook his head and said, Sorry, immortal friend. I've only been in Yuling Bay for half a year. I've never heard of the place you mentioned. If you want to find out, it's best to find the demons who have lived here for a long time. They should know. As soon as Sea Shrimp opened his mouth, Xiaohua immediately thought of the general of the sea race near the Bai and Yazi auction hall. Perhaps only the monster race would know such a strange place. Thank you, fellow immortal. Xiaohua smiled and cupped his hands before walking out of the tent. Who are you? Do you have proof of Yuling Bay? Just as Xiaohua walked out of the tent, a rather shaky voice sounded in front of him. Xiaohua raised his head to look. It was a group of shrimp soldiers and crab generals holding shining weapons in their hands. They just happened to pass by this tent. Seeing a Dao sect cultivator walk out from inside, they immediately surrounded Xiaohua. Xiaohua naturally wouldn't put these small shrimps in his eyes. He took out the jade pendant that you gave him and said, This is the proof that this old man got from the Sea Whale King. You can take a look for yourself. Sea Whale King? The leading crab general's eyes bulged out of their sockets. He looked at the jade pendant in Xiaohua's hand and said coldly, As long as it's not a token issued by my Yuling Hall, it's invalid. No matter who you are, you have to come with us to the Yuling Hall. How dare you? Xiaohua snorted and angrily rebuked. These shrimp soldiers and crab generals were so scared that they trembled. However, they had already received the order from the Yuling Hall. No matter how scared they were, they didn't dare to not brace themselves and surround Xiaohua. Roar! At this moment, a bright cloud of fire flashed in the sky. Ao Jing roared all the way back to Yuling Bay. Along the way, he threw fireballs randomly. Who knows how many flowers and plants were damaged? Brother Xiankong's voice sounded behind Ao Jing at the same time. Each team will be divided into two groups. One half will continue to search for suspicious Confucian cultivators. The other half will form a team outside Yuling Bay and spread out to search the inland. Yes, the shrimp soldiers and crab generals surrounding Xiaohua didn't dare to disobey the order. Half of them flew out of Yuling Bay on a demon cloud. The remaining half looked at Xiaohua's clothes, scratched their heads and thought for a moment. They asked, Are you a Confucian cultivator? This old man is a Taoist cultivator. Xiaohua raised his sleeve and said with a smile. This half of the shrimp soldiers and crab generals shook their heads and let Xiaohua go. Then they continued to search in front. Damn it, with this kind of soldiers, they want to catch this Xiaohua? What a fool's dream. Xiaohua laughed inwardly and flew towards the Yazi auction house. On the contrary, when he arrived near the auction house, apart from a small number of demons on guard, there were fewer shrimp soldiers and crab generals patrolling. The humans and demons who were watching the excitement also disappeared. Even the shops around the auction house were mostly closed. The previous lively scene was nowhere to be seen. However, the shop where the sea race general sold sea relics was still half open. It seemed like it was waiting for Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua's figure had just stepped into the shop when a respectful voice sounded. "Senior is here." "Oh, why are you still here?" Xiao Hua was slightly taken aback. "Who are you?" Without waiting for Xiao Hua to answer, a yuan thought swept over from afar. It landed on Xiao Hua. Soon after, a cold voice sounded. Xiao Hua naturally noticed that there were people from the auction house inspecting nearby. He was not afraid of being discovered. When he heard the question, he turned his head and said with a smile, "This one is Xiao Hua. My Taoist name is Taoist Xiao. What's the matter?" "General, what's the matter?" The person who came was a sea race general wearing armor. He looked like a big octopus. On the side of the armor, several tentacles held several different weapons. He looked very mighty. "Taoist Xiao?" When the sea general heard this, his expression changed slightly. After all, a Taoist cultivator who could be called a Taoist master should be at the early yuanying stage. He was not someone he could resist. However, the sea general looked left and right. He swam toward Xiao Hua and asked, "What are you doing here? Do you have a certificate issued by my Feather Spirit Palace?" "This Taoist Xiao is this little one's friend." Yuan hurriedly ran out of the shop and respectfully said to the sea general, "He came to the Feather Spirit Bay to play. This little one has already helped him obtain a certificate from the Sea Whale King." When the sea general saw Yuan come out, he unconsciously sneered and said, "The Feather Spirit Palace has already issued an order. Apart from the certificate issued by the Feather Spirit Palace, all other certificates are invalid. All human cultivators with invalid certificates are to be detained in the Feather Spirit Palace. Their whereabouts and any suspicious signs will be investigated. Since you are related to this human, you should also come with this general." Yuan was clearly stunned. He took half a step back in fear. However, it was only half a step. He stepped forward and said, "Senior Xiao was invited by this little one. This little one will guarantee his identity with my life. This little one will follow the general to the Feather Spirit Palace." The sea general was startled. He was clearly caught off guard. However, he immediately waved his tentacles and said, "What is a small shrimp like you doing in the Feather Spirit Palace? Be a good boy and stay aside." Then the sea general looked at Xiao Hua and said, "Taoist Xiao, do you want to go by yourself? Or do you want this one to invite you?" Impudent. At this moment, a rather dignified voice came from behind Yuan. The owner of the shop, the sea race general, walked out and scolded, "This is this general's honored guest Brew. Why aren't you scramming back?" "Ah." The sea general called Brew was shocked when he heard the scolding. He almost naturally bowed and said, "This subordinate greets General Lu." Just as he said this, the sea general suddenly woke up. He straightened up and coldly looked at the sea general called Lu and said, "Lu, don't forget. You are no longer a general of the North Sea Dragon Palace. What qualifications do you have to order this general around? This general is here on the orders of the Feather Spirit Palace to investigate suspicious humans. Since you are colluding with this human, you might as well come with this general to the Feather Spirit Palace." Xiao Hua coldly watched from the side, his heart somewhat rueful. There was a struggle for power and fame between the human race, and it was easy for people to scheme against each other. Xiao Hua clearly smelled this kind of dark smell between the Hai Jianglu and the bromine. Lu's face was extremely unsightly. He opened his mouth to say something, but it was very clear that Brew was no longer a small soldier under his command. He could not order him around. But if he let Brew take Xiao Hua away, Lu could not bear to. After all, he already saw hope in Xiao Hua for a group of old soldiers to get rid of their injuries. It was not that Lu did not think of inviting Xiao Hua to the Feather Spirit Palace, and then he would tell him about Xiao Hua's abilities. But the problem was, he didn't know if Xiao Hua was willing to cooperate with the North Sea Dragon Palace. If Xiao Hua wasn't willing, and he had leaked Xiao Hua's divine ability, it would bring disaster to Xiao Hua. Lu didn't think he would do such a thing. Second, even if Xiao Hua was willing to cooperate with the North Sea Dragon Palace, how could the North Sea Dragon Palace waste a divine doctor like Xiao Hua on these old soldiers? There was no lack of shrimp soldiers and crab generals in the North Sea Dragon Palace that could not be cured. Xiao Hua would not have the free time to treat the old soldiers that he cared about. What if I can vouch for you? A faint voice sounded. The sea snake D also walked out and coldly looked at Brew. When Brew heard D's voice, he hurriedly retreated. It was as if he had suffered a great loss in D's hands. His several tentacles quickly danced. He was even more shocked. You, what's wrong with me? Can't you recognize me? D said with a smile. The dignified Xiaohai general is really awe-inspiring. How come I have never seen a soft octopus with a hard bone? Oh my, I forgot. How can an octopus have bones? I really overestimated you. D. Brew's tall figure was like paper in front of D. He slightly swayed. He somewhat inarticulately called out. Why are you here? If you vouch for me. Chapter 39-43. At this point Bromine hesitated. His two slightly transparent eyes trembled rapidly. He looked at Xiao Hua, then looked to the left. He was afraid that this was a trap set for him by D. However, Bromine had been here for a long time, and other soldiers had started to pay attention to this place. This gave Bromine the so-called encouragement. Fine. Bromine clenched his teeth and said, You're the same as Lu. You're no longer a subordinate of the North Sea Dragon Palace. What qualifications do you have to guarantee? Since you're with this human, you can't get away with it. You don't know what happened in the Yazi arena last night. Let's go. Bromine took a few steps forward, and the weapon on his tentacles danced arrogantly. Is that so? Are you sure you want me to go? Drip took a step forward with a faint smile. This simple step scared Bromine into retreating a few steps, as if he didn't dare to get too close to Drip. You're pissing me off. Just as Drip was about to push Bromine back, a low, powerless voice came from behind Drip. Then Chio's grandfather, Old Shrimp, staggered out with a shabby crutch. Without saying a word, he swung the crutch at Bromine. Bromine's body was naturally much bigger than Chio's grandfather. The crutch also looked funny. Bromine only needed to lift any one of his tentacles to knock it away. However, seeing Old Shrimp's crutch coming at him, Bromine didn't dare to move. He just let Old Shrimp's crutch hit him. Bromine could only wave his tentacles and the weapon in the air. He shouted in exasperation. Old man, you're a veteran who's been through fire and water. You've bled a lot for the North Sea Dragon Palace. You've done a lot in battle, but you can't delay me. I'll guarantee for Daoist Xiao. Old Shrimp said loudly. If you want to take Daoist Xiao, then take me too. You can't do it either. Bromine didn't dare to fight back, but when he saw some of his colleagues coming over, he gritted his teeth and answered. Of course Old Shrimp can't do it. What about us? We'll all guarantee for Daoist Xiao. As he said that, another group of old Sea Tribe members came out of Lu's shop. Some were Sea Tribe members, some were Sea Tribe members, some were loaches, and some were crabs. This. Bromine was at a loss for words. He glanced at the soldiers of the North Sea Dragon Palace who had surrounded them, then quickly fled. Although these veterans didn't have any official positions, and were on the verge of death, they had made outstanding military contributions. They were all old ruffians who couldn't rub sand in their eyes. They were far from what the current soldiers could afford to offend. Usually, these old ruffians would reprimand these soldiers whenever they saw them, let alone now that Bromine had provoked them. The group of Dragon Palace soldiers saw that the situation was not right and ran away, leaving only Bromine to stay behind. Bromine was dumbfounded at the sight of so many veterans. His head was bigger than a mountain. He didn't think that his duty of inviting this strange human to the Feather Spirit Palace would cause so much trouble. Hee, fellow immortals. Xiao Hua smiled and cupped his hands. There's no need to make things too difficult for this general. Although this Xiao participated in the Yazi auction hall's auction, this Xiao withdrew from the auction midway for some reason. Although this Xiao doesn't know what happened in the auction, if this Xiao needs to go and ask, this Xiao has no objections. Look at Daoist Xiao. An old loach clapped his hands. He's really a Daoist master. He can kill you with a raise of his hand, but he's still talking to you calmly. Little octopus, do you think this kind of Daoist master is the human Confucian cultivator you're looking for? An old crab waved his claws and shouted. If Daoist Xiao wants to go to the Feather Spirit Palace, we'll go together. Wherever Taoist Xiao goes, we'll go together. Hearing this, Xiaohua didn't need to look anymore. This must be an old ruffian. He hadn't even met Xiaohua and he was already relying on Xiaohua. This. Bromine began to step back and said with a somewhat panicked tone. The Feather Spirit Palace is looking for a human Confucian cultivator. This Taoist Xiao is obviously not one. Just now my eyes were playing tricks on me. Bromine was a junior in front of these veterans. He couldn't afford to offend any of them. Before the veterans surrounded him, he hurriedly withdrew. At this time, Bromine wasn't afraid of anything going wrong. Although these veterans looked old and weak, they had all risked their lives for the North Sea Dragon Palace for so many years. Their words might not be as useful as his in the Feather Spirit Palace, but in the Feather Spirit Bay, 100 of him couldn't compare to one of them. Seeing Bromine leave with his tail between his legs, several veterans still scolded themselves. Damn it, where did this little bastard come from? How dare he behave so atrociously in front of me? Xiaohua smiled and didn't say anything. He just stood aside. Taoist Xiao. Lu stood aside and said with a smile. I'm sorry to make you laugh. Bromine was a little narrow-minded, but he was timid and didn't have too many bad intentions. I guess he saw that Taoist Xiao was a human and wanted to take credit for it. In fact, if Taoist Xiao wasn't the Confucian cultivator they were looking for, they wouldn't make things too difficult for Taoist Xiao. It doesn't matter. Xiaohua waved his hand and said, if it wasn't for the fact that I was still worried about your injuries, I'm afraid I would have left long ago and ignored his little tricks. Many thanks for Taoist Xiao's pity. Seeing Xiaohua return, Lu was already happy in his heart. However, he was still uneasy. He didn't know whether Xiaohua came back for the sea sirira, or to save the old sea shrimp. Now that he heard it, his heart had already flown away. His eyes blurred, and he hurriedly bowed to express his thanks. Sea Snakely moved his body and said in a low voice, let's invite Taoist Xiao in first. Now that there are changes in the auction, the entire Feather Spirit Bay is heavily guarded. It's better not to attract the attention of the Feather Spirit Palace. Yes. Lu woke up and hurriedly said, Taoist Xiao, please come in. Please. A group of veterans were now very obedient. They all had smiles on their faces and opened the door of the shop. Although the other party was from the sea race and might have human blood on their hands, Xiaohua saw that they were all like the old sea shrimp. Many parts of their bodies were wrapped in seaweed, and some strange smell floated out from the seaweed. Xiaohua still raised his hand and said, Seniors. Speaking until here, Xiaohua stopped again. The sea race was a monster. There was no way to call them seniors. However, before Xiaohua's face became awkward, the group of veterans hurriedly bowed and said, Taoist Xiao, please. And seeing this, Xiaohua no longer modestly declined and stepped into the shop. Then, these veterans hurriedly came in under the lead of the old sea shrimp. Taoist Xiao, please sit. After Lu walked into the shop, he hurriedly took out a chair from who knows where and respectfully placed it beside Xiaohua. Xiaohua looked at the group of veterans. Those veterans hurriedly raised their hands and said with a smile, Taoist Xiao, please. All right. Xiaohua sat down, looked at Li and said with a smile, Is this Xiao's pill easy to use? Li swam over and prostrated herself in front of Xiaohua. She said in a low voice, This one thanks Taoist Xiao for the pill. This one's illness has been completely cured. Even this one feels that my strength can still increase in the future. Oh. Xiaohua was slightly surprised, but he immediately understood. The soul-nourishing pill refined by the green-robed Xiaohua was refined in the space. There were 3 moon stars and 6 sun stars in the space, so the power of the stars and moon naturally surpassed that of the hidden immortal continent. Moreover, the soul-nourishing pill nourished Dee's soul, allowing Dee to better control her own bloodline through her soul. Moreover, the secrets of the sea snake's bloodline could also be known by Dee, so Dee could use these to enhance her strength. After understanding, Xiaohua said with a smile, Then I congratulate Taoist Xiao. I didn't expect that the pill that this one casually refined would have such an effect. Casually refined? Li was somewhat dumbfounded. In her eyes, that pill was really miraculous and wonderful. At the same time, Lu said in surprise, That pill was really refined by Taoist Xiao. And naturally, although it was refined by the green-robed Xiaohua, was there any difference between this and Xiaohua's refinement? Xiaohua naturally admitted with a smile. That. Lu opened his mouth as if he wanted to ask, but he was somewhat hesitant. Xiaohua said straightforwardly, since this one has returned, I also want to see if I can do anything for you. After all, if your illness can be cured, then you can hunt less sea relics. This is also a matter of boundless virtue. It's just that this one doesn't know much about your sea race's healing techniques. Similarly, I also don't have the pill formula for refining pills or medicines. This is easy, an old ruffian shouted without hesitation. We will kill our way to the apricot forest medicine shop and make them hand over whatever pill formula. Xiaohua smiled but didn't say anything. The sea snakely hurriedly said, if you want to go, then go. In this way, even if Taoist Xiao wants to help, he won't dare. Yes, I was just joking. Taoist Xiao shouldn't take it seriously. That old ruffian laughed mischievously. He naturally understood that Xiaohua wouldn't let him loot the human race's medicine shop and harm the human race's interests. Taoist Xiao, Lu said from the side. This one also thought for a long time just now. It's not realistic to get the pill formula from the apricot forest medicine shop. Moreover, his pill formula might not be useful. Taoist Xiao's pill formula still needs to be obtained from the North Sea Dragon Palace, Zhaixing Lu, Yazi Auction House, Li Lai Trading Company, and Luo E Merchant Union. Of course the Dragon Palace has it, but the Feather Spirit Palace may not give it. Zhaixing Lu, Yazi Auction House, and Li Lai Trading Company need to bid. To be honest, not to mention whether these things are available, we don't have many sea crystals, and may not be able to bid. The last place left is the Luo E Merchant Union. This one has heard of the Luo E Merchant Union's reputation before. It's a merchant union formed by the demon race of the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm. It's not large in scale and its transactions are always fair. Moreover, they are indeed resourceful and can get things that ordinary demon race can't. This one wants to see Taoist Xiao and ask him clearly. This one will go find the Luo E Merchant Union now. Chapter 3944. Oh. Xiaohua smiles and turns to look at Yuan asking, is this your recommendation again? Yuan hurriedly waves his hand and says, this is not what I said. General knew about it and then asked about it. That's why I reported it to you. Xiaohua thinks for a while and says to Lu, it would be best if you could find Beiwen who recorded the pill recipe in Luo E Merchant Union. I would be able to refine pills according to the recipe. Taoist Xiao, you don't want to go with me? Lu is a bit surprised and disappointed. Xiaohua smiles. I don't know much about the pill recipes of the monster race. It doesn't matter if I go or not. You only need to ask the monster race in Luo E Merchant Union for the pill recipe. They should be in charge of it. Moreover, I have something important to do. I'm afraid I can't accompany you. Alright. Lu naturally wants Xiaohua to go with him. However, Xiaohua has something important to do so he can't force him. Beside him, Drop hastily asks tactfully, Taoist Xiao, what is it? Do you want to do it in Yuling Bay? And Xiaohua nods. After thinking for a while he asks, do you know a place called Drifting Pavilion? Drifting Pavilion? Drop thinks for a while and shakes his head. I am familiar with every place in Yuling Bay, but I have never heard of Drifting Pavilion. Could it be that this drifting lightning abode that Taoist Xiao mentioned is located outside of Yuling Bay? Xiaohua shakes his head and replies, no, it's in Yuling Bay. Drop looks at some old soldiers on the left. After thinking for a while he says in a low voice, Taoist Xiao, if possible you should ask these old sea race. Xiaohua nodded, then raised his head to look at the closed shop door and said, everyone, this Xiao came to Yuling Bay to look for an old friend. He left a message for this Xiao, saying that he was at the Drifting Pavilion. But this Xiao couldn't find him anywhere in Yuling Bay. I wonder if anyone can answer my question? Drifting Pavilion? The group of old Oceanids are also slightly startled. They all look at each other, wanting to share Xiaohua's burden. However, they seem to have never heard of this name before. One of the old Oceanids even asks, Taoist Xiao, do you think this flowing lightning residence, is it the Yi residence? Or a place name? Or the brothel that you humans often talk about? Xiao Hua smiled and said, This Xiao doesn't know either, I only know the name of this place. Suddenly, Old Sea Shrimp seemed to have thought of something and said hurriedly, I remember now. It seems that there is such a place. But, oh, you know about it? Hearing this, Xiao Hua was overjoyed. Seeing that Old Sea Shrimp didn't say anything, he asked, Could it be that there's something strange about this place? Indeed. Seeing Xiao Hua being so cautious, Old Sea Shrimp winked at the group of Old Sea race members and whispered a few words to Xiao Hua. Sure enough, Xiao Hua's brows slightly creased. After a while, Xiao Hua smiled and said, Since this Xiao has come, then I should still make a trip. Everyone just stay here, or go somewhere together. General, hurry to the Luari Merchant Union. When this Xiao pays a visit to my old friend, I can refine some pills or medicines for you. Okay, Lu nodded vigorously and said, I'll go now. When I find the pill formula, we'll meet at Yaoshi. This place is too close to the Yazi auction house. After all, it's inconvenient for Daoist Xiao to be here. Indeed. You all go first. I'll immediately go find a Feather Spirit Palace certificate for Daoist Xiao. An Old Sea race member said hurriedly. Xiao Hua watched as Lu opened the shop door, and the group of Old Sea race members walked out. He said to the fish monster, Yuan, take this Xiao to that place. Okay, this little one understands. The fish monster was extremely excited. It rubbed its illusory hands and nodded vigorously. Sea Snakely hurriedly said, Daoist Xiao, do you want me to accompany you? No need. Xiao Hua waved his hand. You go with Lu to the Luori Merchant Union. Since there is a pill formula, there must be some demonic herbs, demonic fruits and so on. You also help to take a look. Lu is not a shrewd businessman. Li covered his mouth and said, He's not a human to begin with. And Xiao Hua nodded. He looked around and said, If possible, give all the sea relics in this shop to this Xiao. This Xiao has a use for them. No problem, Li said without hesitation. This one will pack it up right away. When Daoist Xiao returns, I'll give them all to you. Xiao Hua took out a Qiankuan bag and handed it to Li. He directly took the fish monster and prepared to leave the shop. The little sea shrimp waiting at the entrance of the shop hurriedly said shyly, Daoist Xiao, Grandpa and the others have gone to find a certificate for Daoist Xiao. Please wait for a moment. They really went. Xiao Hua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Thus, Xiao Hua simply stood inside the shop and watched Li tidy up the sea relics in the shop. On the other hand, the somewhat tyrannical shop assistant from before had long disappeared. After a while, Li tidied up all the sea relics in the shop and gave the Qiankuan bag to Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua looked inside and saw that there were indeed a lot of sea relics. Thinking about how each sea relic was the life of a sea race member, Xiao Hua increasingly felt that doing these things was worth it. Xiao Hua had just received the Qiankuan bag when the Old Sea Shrimp brought the two Old Sea race members back hurriedly. From the looks of it, they didn't seem to be injured at all. Xiao Hua received a fish card and carefully held it. He smiled and said, Many thanks, everyone. You can go and rest first. When this Xiao comes back, I will help you refine pills. Seeing Xiao Hua treasuring the fish card very much, the Old Sea Shrimp and the others were quite happy. They cupped their hands and said, Thank you for everything, Daoist Xiao. Seeing the Old Sea Shrimp and the others leave, Xiao Hua also waved his hand and hurriedly took the fish monster out of the shop. After a while, the fish monster asked in a low voice, Daoist Xiao, where are you going? Bian. Xiao Hua said these two words through sound transmission. Ah, you want to go to Qi? The fish monster was shocked and almost blurted out. Fortunately, he only spoke half of it and stopped. Xiao Hua smiled and said, If you don't dare to go, then just point in the direction. This Xiao already knows where it is, I can ask. No, this little one will take Daoist Xiao there. Yuan clenched his teeth and said. Then he raised his hand and a demonic cloud appeared under his feet, asking Xiao Hua to fly with him. Xiao Hua urged his flying technique and followed behind Yuan, flying towards the outside of Yuling Bay. Sure enough, along the way, there were many shrimp soldiers and crab generals patrolling, stopping Xiao Hua from time to time. The certificate given to Xiao Hua by the Old Sea Shrimp was quite useful. Every sea race took a look at it and didn't ask much, directly letting them go. After flying over the mountain range of Yuling Bay, they arrived at the other side. Before they could get close, a hot aura hit them in the face, and a strong smell of sulfur gradually diffused in the air. Near this hot aura, there were no sea race, and the patrolling shrimp soldiers and crab generals were also gone. After flying for a while, Yuan's figure was already trembling. Obviously, he couldn't adapt to the heat here. Xiaohua said, "Yuan, Chi-Chi must be in front. You don't need to get too close. This old man will go by himself. You find a suitable place to stay. After this old man comes out, I will come to find you." The fish monster stopped in midair and said very shamefully, "Many thanks for Daoist Zhao's sympathy. This little one really can't stand it anymore. And this is a hot place. It's different from the humid life of sea race. It's normal that you can't stand it." Xiaohua smiled and waved his hand, then flew forward. The fish monster watched Xiaohua's figure fly over the foothills and fall into the valley. It quickly turned around and flew straight to the inside of Yuling Bay. The salty sea breeze swept up the moisture and fell on the fish monster's body. Only then did the fish monster let out a long sigh of relief. It didn't even transform into its human form and return to its fish form. It twisted in the air, as if it was enjoying it to the extreme. Xiaohua flew over the mountain valley, and in front of him was a sea of scarlet red mountain rocks, scarlet red sand, and also surging scarlet red lava. However, this scarlet red only covered a range of a few dozen li looking further into the valley. There was another stretch of dilapidated fences and dilapidated walls, some dilapidated stone pillars, collapsed pavilions, and other things piled up in the valley. Many weeds and wild vines wrapped around these buildings. Xiaohua had already learned from old sea shrimp that this valley was called Drifting Pavilion thousands of years ago. It was a place where some monster race gathered. However, there was a change later on. A huge amount of magma was produced overnight, completely destroying the entire drifting pavilion. After the monster race left, another monster race occupied this place and changed the name of this place to Chi-Chi. As for why Yuan's expression changed when he heard about this place, it was not only because this place was hot and basically no sea race came here, but also because the monster race that occupied this place was a barbarian, a monster beast that liked to eat sea race. Yuan usually didn't have enough time to hide. Why would he come here? Xiaohua stood in midair and released his divine sense to explore. He had already seen the dried fish hanging on the mountain rock in the depths of the valley. These dried fish were not the kind that ordinary people would hang in their homes. The short ones were a few feet long, and the long ones were several zhang long. They were all dried up and shrunk to one place. It was obvious that when these barbarians hunted these sea race people, the sea race people's bodies were huge. Xiaohua secretly smiled and said, "This place is not bad." Presumably, the North Sea Dragon Palace also didn't expect Jiang Che to be hiding here. Then, Xiaohua let Jiang Sheng out. The moment Jiang Sheng came out, he immediately shrunk his neck and looked a little uncomfortable. He then looked around and asked curiously, "This is Drifting Pavilion? I'll let fellow immortal Jiang know." Xiaohua smiled and said, "This place was originally called Drifting Pavilion. Later on, because magma spewed out, Drifting Pavilion was destroyed. Now it's called Chi-Chi." This Jiang Sheng was a little hesitant. He frowned and said, "Since it's called Chi-Chi, why did Jiang Che say it's Drifting Pavilion? How can I find Jiang Che? Anyway, this is Drifting Pavilion." Xiaohua shrugged and replied, "As for how to find Jiang Che, I don't know. However, there's a group of barbarians here who know how to forge weapons. You might as well go and ask them." "All right." Jiang Sheng thought for a while and nodded. However, after flying for several zhang, he turned his head and asked, "Daoist Xiao, the North Sea Dragon Palace didn't chase after us, right?" "No." Xiaohua looked between the mountain rocks and casually replied. "That's good." Jiang Sheng smiled and flew down the valley. Chapter 3945. At the bottom of the valley was an enormous mountain crevice. Within the mountain crevice was a space of hundreds of meters. Within this space, one after another, stone caves surrounded the crimson magma in the center. In front of the stone caves, there were many materials and large pieces of stone scattered about. At the edge of the magma, there were also some weapons submerged in the magma. Only some parts of the handles were exposed. Xiao Hua and Jiang Sheng had just approached this mountain crevice when they were immediately discovered by the demon race. They saw 5 leopards, each about 30 meters in size, holding weapons as they flew over from the left side of the magma on a demon cloud. The leopard in front was holding a dried fish in its hand and was biting it with all its might. Its sharp fangs flashed with a blood-red color. "Stop!" one of the leopards shouted loudly. "Is this a place where you can come?" Jiangsheng turned his head to look at Xiao Hua and smiled. He flew forward a few steps, cupped his hands, and said, "GG Pai." Xiao Hua was stunned and blinked his eyes. He could be considered proficient in the demon language and dragon language, but he actually didn't understand what Jiangsheng was saying. However, since Jiangsheng and Jiang Che had arranged to meet here, and Jiangsheng didn't bring any keepsake, presumably this strange demon language was also what they had agreed on, right? As expected, when the leopard heard Jiangsheng speak, its expression changed slightly. The leopard that was eating the dried fish threw away the dried fish in its hand and flew a few steps closer. It also spoke in a similar demon language, but the speed of its speech was even more hurried. The 2 demons spoke a few words, and then they both stretched out their claws and stuck them together. The claws slightly touched a few times, and the rhythm was also different. Then the leopard raised its head and looked at Xiao Hua. On that sinister and strange leopard face, a trace of a smile was squeezed out. Seeing this, Xiao Hua also nodded and returned a smile at him. The leopard raised its hand. It was still that strange demon language, which seemed to mean please. Jiangsheng transmitted his voice in a low voice. "Spiritual Master Xiao, please follow me." Okay. Xiao Hua knew that Jiangsheng was being cautious, so he also sent a sound transmission and flew down with Jiangsheng. The other few barbarians also gave way. Their faces were also filled with respect. The leopard in front led Xiao Hua and Jiangsheng into a cave. The inside of the cave was even hotter than the outside. Several streams of magma seeped in from the 4 corners of the cave, then flowed through several grooves and fell into a furnace similar to a cauldron. This furnace was square in shape, and strange demon characters were engraved on it. There were many patterns in the demon characters, and those patterns were actually filled with the splendor of the moon and stars. Seeing this, Xiao Hua knew that this was a tool used by the demi-human race, and couldn't help but take a few more glances at it. However, he could see that there were only some raw materials in the furnaces, presumably still being refined. When he thought about the weapons in the lava outside the cave, Xiao Hua lost interest in taking a closer look. The strength of these barbarians was limited, and they could only use the lava to refine weapons. They had no value to him as a reference. Naturally, there were also some barbarians following behind Xiao Hua. When they saw Xiao Hua looking at the furnace, they frowned and looked at each other with dissatisfaction in their eyes. After passing through this cave, they arrived at an even larger cave. Inside, there were some weapons commonly seen by the sea race, and they seemed to be of good quality. However, Xiao Hua's gaze didn't even stop. He directly looked into the cave, and saw another deep cave. At this moment, there were several larger barbarians standing in front of the deep cave. The leader of the barbarians walked forward, and whispered a few words. Unexpectedly, he also spoke in strange demon characters. The barbarians guarding the deep cave also raised their heads in surprise. They looked at Jiangsheng and then at Xiao Hua. After a slight hesitation, they muttered a few words before turning around and entering the deep cave. Xiao Hua looked at the dark cave, and didn't release his divine sense. He then lowered his head and looked at his feet. Below his feet was a layer of magma that had cooled down. It was ochre red in color, and there were some fire-type yuan qi emitting from it, causing the entire cave to be scorching hot. At this moment, Jiangsheng turned his head and smiled at Xiao Hua, as if indicating for Xiao Hua to wait a moment. Xiao Hua also smiled and nodded. He didn't mind. After a while, the barbarian came out and waved the large black fork in his hand. "Go in." "Damn it, I finally understood a few words." Xiao Hua cursed inwardly as he followed Jiangsheng into the deep cave. The deep cave was indeed large. There was a huge stone table with several strange weapons placed on top of it. At the head of the stone table, there was a barbarian that was over 10 zhang tall sitting coldly on a stone bed. Next to it were several other barbarians with graceful figures. They were probably female and were obediently accompanying it. Next to the stone table, there were also a dozen or so barbarians. They were all staring at Xiaohua and Jiangsheng with fiendish expressions. Jiji Gugu the barbarian opened its mouth and spoke in a difficult demon character. Jiangsheng took a few steps forward and also spoke a few words. Then the barbarian was slightly stunned, as if it didn't dare to believe it. Similarly, the dozen or so barbarians were also stunned. Some of them even looked at the barbarians that had attracted Xiaohua and Jiangsheng in disbelief. "What did you say?" The barbarian was a little anxious and finally spoke in a demon character that Xiaohua could understand. "I didn't say anything." Jiangsheng turned his head and glanced at Xiaohua. He said coldly, "I already said that I am a dragon general of the North Sea Dragon Palace. My subordinates have already surrounded this place. All of you, leave behind the things used to forge weapons and hurry up and get out of here. Otherwise, don't blame me for killing all of you. Don't you think that Taoist Master Xiao?" Jiangsheng's tone was gloomy. The gaze he used to look at Xiaohua was also sharp, and even had a hint of ridicule. Yu Xiaohua listened to Jiangsheng's baffling words and couldn't help but be stunned. Just like those barbarians from before, when he looked at Jiangsheng's gaze again, Xiaohua suddenly understood. After all this fuss, he had been led by the nose by Jiangsheng. There was no Jiangche in the Flowing Lightning residence. Even now Jiangsheng still didn't believe him. Damn it! Without waiting for Xiaohua to say anything, the leader of the barbarians roared angrily and swung his arm. The female barbarians around him were immediately sent flying. The leader of the barbarians pounced toward Xiaohua like a flying mountain. The two claws made a woo-woo whistling sound and instantly slapped in front of Xiaohua's eyes. "You're sick." Xiaohua coldly spat out two words at Jiangsheng. His left hand waved in midair, and the wishful steel staff appeared in his hand. Boom! There was a loud noise and it hit the claws of the barbarians. The claws on the head of the barbarians were very powerful. In the loud noise, a line of sparks appeared. The leader of the barbarians was actually not sent flying by the wishful steel staff. Moreover, the leader of the barbarians actually used the huge force of the wishful steel staff to flash in midair. The thick leopard tail made a woo sound again and swept toward Xiaohua's head. Xiaohua urged his magic power, and the air waves in the nearby space surged. Xiaohua slightly flicked his finger, and a spell was cast. A fist-sized earth shield immediately appeared in front of him. Puff! In the time it took for a spark to fly off a flint, the tail of the flying leopard hit the earth shield. A thick crack appeared on the earth shield, but it didn't shatter. However, the flying leopard's tail drooped down. It was clearly injured by the counterattack of the earth shield. Roar! At this moment, the dozens of barbarians next to the stone table roared and rushed toward Xiaohua and Jiangsheng respectively. Xiaohua did not face them at all. After blocking the attack of the leader of the barbarians, he sneered and urged the fire escape technique. Shua! There was a light sound, but a string of flames was born, and his figure disappeared from the distance. The barbarians that rushed toward Xiaohua were startled. They looked at each other and two of them turned around and chased out of the deep hole, while the rest rushed towards Jiangsheng. Roar! Xiaohua appeared outside the mountain valley. Hearing the faint dragon roar in the mountain valley, he snorted coldly and flew towards the top of the mountain valley without stopping. Those dozens of barbarians were only in the light-gathering realm, and could not be considered as powerful experts. However, the leader of the barbarians had the strength of the Enlightenment Star realm. If Jiangsheng was at his peak, he would be able to put up a fight. As for now, Jiangsheng was already injured, so how could he be a match for these barbarians? However, this had nothing to do with Xiaohua. Xiaohua wanted to help Jiangsheng with good intentions, but he didn't expect that Jiangsheng would make a fool out of him like this. Xiaohua, who looked very reckless, was actually so scheming. It really made Xiaohua's heart cold. Xiaohua's divine sense swept through the bottom of the mountain valley. Two barbarians led a few weaker ones out. Xiaohua originally wanted to teach these monsters a lesson, but when he saw the scarlet mountain rocks nearby, he sighed. His figure moved, turning into a rainbow and flying into the sky. Then, Xiaohua waved his large sleeve and swept up Yuan, who was standing far away from the mountain rocks, and disappeared in a moment. Where did the Dragon Palace Marine soldiers come from? Then, where did that powerful human fly off to? Dozens of barbarians flew up the mountain valley with weapons in hand. Their gazes were all empty. Not only did they not see Xiao Hua's figure, the shrimp soldiers and crab generals were also nowhere to be seen. The leader of the barbarians released his divine sense and looked around for a moment. His eyes turned a few times, and he instructed the barbarians behind him. Go to the Feather Spirit Palace and find out if the second prince of the Dragon Palace wants to go back on his word again? Oh, and while you're at it, see what happened in Feather Spirit Bay recently. Yes, the dozens of barbarians scattered and flew away, disappearing in a moment. The two barbarians who had chased after Xiao Hua were still not at ease. They once again circled the entire mountain valley before descending into the mountain valley. Xiao Hua's figure landed in Feather Spirit Bay. Yuan shook his head, looked left and right, and said with a smile, Daoist, have you finished your business? And yes, it's already finished. Bring this Xiao to Yaoshi. Xiao Hua nodded, his face not showing any abnormality. Senior, please follow this little one. Seeing that Xiao Hua was so serious about his promise, the fish monster was overjoyed. It carefully flew in front of Xiao Hua, bringing him into the depths of Feather Spirit Bay. While Xiao Hua was flying, he was thinking about how to refine pills for old sea shrimp and the others. At this time, he was not in the mood to be angry about Jiang Sheng's distrust. After all, from the beginning to the end, Xiao Hua was helping Jiang Sheng with his own wishful thinking. It was normal for Jiang Sheng to be suspicious, but Xiao Hua helping others to this extent was indeed a bit shameful. Chapter 3946. Now that he thought about it, ever since Xiao Hua saved Jiang Sheng in the Yazi arena, Xiao Hua had never let Jiang Sheng see the fight between him and the North Sea Dragon Palace. How could Jiang Sheng trust the few names that Xiao Hua mentioned? Even if Xiao Hua escaped with Jiang Sheng still saw the fight between Xiao Hua and the North Sea Dragon Palace. If it was Jiang Sheng, he could also see it as the North Sea Dragon Palace playing hard to get. Jiang Sheng thought that Xiao Hua was bait to capture Jiang Che, Jiang Hong, and the people of the Heavenly Abode River. This was very normal. Since that was the case, what Jiang Sheng said to Xiao Hua earlier should also be a test. In other words, Jiang Hong was not captured by the North Sea Dragon Palace. Perhaps it was because of this that Jiang Sheng saw the flaw. And it was also because of this flaw that Xiao Hua was relieved. As long as Jiang Hong was fine, the matter of the Heavenly Abode River had nothing to do with Xiao Hua. Especially since Jiang Sheng drowned Longevity Town, he deserved to die. Xiao Hua pulled himself away and left without the slightest bit of hesitation. After flying past some shops, Xiao Hua frowned slightly. Everywhere he looked, there were large and small puddles. Some of these puddles were empty, and some of them were floating on the surface of the water. Some of these puddles were filled with filth, and some of them had some members of the sea race floating on them. However, these puddles were emitting an unpleasant odor. This odor was somewhat stinky and rotten. Xiao Hua felt that it was very strange. Looking at the end of the puddles, there were some simple origin arrays. Xiao Hua's eyes could not see through them. Although Yuan was flying in front, his eyes never left Xiao Hua's face. Seeing Xiao Hua frown, he hurriedly smiled and said, Daoist, this is the place where the sea race like me live. This place is filled with seawater brought in by the Feather Spirit Palace. Normally, it is changed every half a year. If it was the place where the ordinary sea race lived, there would not be an unpleasant smell. However, if it was the place where the old sea shrimp lived, because of their injuries, the seawater would inevitably be contaminated with the smell. The seawater that is changed every half a year does not require sea crystals. If you want to change it normally, you need to pay a lot of sea crystals, so? And no harm, Xiao Hua smiled and said. This old man will not smell it. Yes, enlightened master. It's not far ahead. Yuan pointed at a place protected by an origin formation in the distance. In fact, there was no need for Yuan to say anything. Outside the formation, Old Shrimp and the other old members of the Sea Clan were already waiting there. Seeing Xiao Hua coming over, all of them had smiles on their faces. After the old members of the Sea Clan entered the formation, the other old members of the Sea Clan welcomed them. Daoist Xiao, Please. Old Sea Shrimp very respectfully invited Xiaohua to enter the origin formation. In front of Xiaohua were dozens of old sea creatures with different appearances. Before Xiaohua even opened his mouth, these old sea creatures all slightly bowed, carefully greeting Xiaohua with smiling faces. Xiaohua raised his hand, saluted everyone and said with a smile, "Gentlemen, gentlemen, has General Lu returned?" Old Sea Shrimp hastily walked out, raised his claws and said with a smile, "Old men, don't surround Daoist Xiao. Since Daoist Xiao is already here, he will definitely help us if he can. I still want to let you rest for a while and wait for you to return." All right. As they spoke, the dozens of old sea race members dispersed. However, they didn't go far, and their gazes were fixed on Xiaohua. "Daoist Xiao, this way please." Old Sea Shrimp raised his hand and invited Xiaohua to walk towards the center of the origin formation. The interior of the origin formation was about a few li in size. It looked like an island with seawater all around. There were some trees on the island, and there was actually a pavilion among the trees. Near the pavilion, there were also some clear and melodious chirping sounds of birds. Xiaohua flew across the seawater and landed on the island. He looked around and said with a smile, "This Yaoshi really lives up to its name." "Indeed," Old Sea Shrimp said with a smile. "This Yaoshi is a famous place to receive guests in Yuling Bay. Many humans like to rest here. When I came over, a few Confucian cultivators had just left this place." General Lu is very considerate. Xiaohua understood. So this Yaoshi wasn't what he had imagined. It was the place where Old Sea Shrimp and the other sea creatures lived. Walking into the pavilion, there was a stone table, a few jade chairs and a few small cups placed on top of the stone table. The cups were filled with some light green liquid, and Xiaohua couldn't tell what it was. "Daoist Xiao, please take a seat." Old Sea Shrimp respectfully invited Xiaohua to sit down. He raised his hand and picked up a cup and placed it in front of Xiaohua. "This is Yuling Bay's ice rain liquid. It is produced from the ice spring at the bottom of the North Sea. It is said that it is useful for the cultivation of humans." Xiaohua sighed. He took the cup and said, "Why are you so polite? Presumably, this thing will cost a lot of sea crystals. It is enough for me to know your intentions." Old Sea Shrimp said with a smile, "There is a saying in the human race, no one will blame you for being polite. We are all vulgar sea creatures. We don't understand the etiquette of the hidden immortal continent. Normally, we would only learn it after seeing others do it. As long as Daoist doesn't get tired of it, we will be satisfied." "Forget it." Xiaohua raised the cup, raised his head and swallowed the ice rain liquid into his mouth. As the ice rain liquid entered his stomach, an ice-cold yuan qi came out from the ice rain liquid and rushed into Xiaohua's meridians. At the same time, Xiaohua's body felt refreshed, as if all the pores on his body were about to open. "Not bad," Xiaohua said with a smile. "Ice rain liquid really lives up to its reputation. If Daoist likes it, then use it all." Old Sea Shrimp hurriedly put the other cups in front of Xiaohua. "These things are useless to us sea creatures." Xiaohua bitterly smiled. This ice rain liquid was admittedly not bad, but that was only for ordinary cultivators. The amount of yuan qi within this ice rain liquid was simply insignificant to Xiaohua. The only thing that could make Xiaohua praise it was the momentary feeling and nothing more. Looking at Old Sea Shrimp, who was very eager, Xiaohua waved his hand and received the ice rain liquid. He said with a smile, "I appreciate your intentions. I have no use for this thing now. Let's talk about it later." Good. The Old Sea Shrimp smiled and chatted with Xiaohua for a while. Xiaohua also asked about the Feather Spirit Bay with interest. At this time, Xiaohua knew that the Old Sea Shrimp and the other soldiers of the North Sea Dragon Palace were born in the sea. However, because of the war, they were sent to guard Yuling Bay because of their meritorious service. Yuling Bay was naturally a peaceful place, and there would be no more war. However, after these veterans retired, they could no longer cut through the wind and waves and return to the Northern Sea territory. They could only spend the rest of their lives here. In fact, for these old sea creatures, as long as there was seawater, anywhere was their home. However, they were injured and in pain every day. Usually, it was inevitable that they would think of their former carefree life and miss their former sea. As for Lu, he was just as Xiaohua thought. He was a loyal sea creature general. When he saw that his subordinates' injuries could not be healed and they were howling every day, he took out the sea crystals he had accumulated to treat their injuries. The sea relics in the shop were also killed by him using sea crystals to invite soldiers he was familiar with. As for old sea shrimp and the other sea creatures, they naturally lived in the puddles that Xiaohua saw when he walked over. The fishy smell was emitted by the pus and blood on their bodies. How many sea creatures like you are in Yuling Bay? Xiaohua asked with a frown. At least 100,000. Old sea shrimp answered without hesitation. Xiaohua was puzzled and asked curiously, how come there are so many? Then, why do you all have to live in Yuling Bay? Won't you return to the northern sea? Old sea shrimp smiled bitterly and said, Daoist Xiao, you don't know. However, before he could explain, a sharp voice called out from afar. Daoist Xiao, have you returned? Daoist Xiao, have you returned? Then, a Yuan Shen hurriedly swept over and landed on Xiaohua. The voice sounded again. Quick, Daoist Xiao, Lu has encountered trouble in the flowing merchant union. Xiaohua stared blankly. He didn't understand why Lu had encountered trouble in the flowing merchant union, and why Drip was looking for him. However, he didn't hesitate. His figure turned into a rainbow and flew to the sea where the Yuan Shen formation was and said, Quick, let's go on the way. Drip told him what had happened. In fact, it wasn't a big deal. Today there was a small auction in the flowing merchant union that was similar to the Yazi auction house. After participating, Lu came across a beast skin and bevan that had a pill formula recorded. Coincidentally, the Apricot Forest Medicine Shop also participated in this auction. The Apricot Forest Medicine Shop was determined to get the beast skin and bevan. Of course, Lu wouldn't give in. The two sides started to bid and the beast skin and bevan reached an extremely high price. The Apricot Forest Medicine Shop obviously didn't believe that Lu could take out so many sea crystals. Therefore, they took out their Qiankuan bag and asked for the sea crystals immediately after bidding. This was contrary to the auction rules of the Flowing Merchant Union, so the Flowing Merchant Union didn't agree. However, the Flowing Merchant Union reminded Lu that if he couldn't take out so many sea crystals after the auction, not only would the beast skin and bevan belong to the Apricot Forest Medicine Shop, Lu would also have to pay a large amount of sea crystals to the Apricot Forest Medicine Shop. Of course, Lu didn't have so many sea crystals. He hurriedly asked Drip to come back and find old sea shrimp, and the others to raise the sea crystals. Drip was well aware of how many sea crystals old sea shrimp and the other sea tribes had. She knew that these sea tribes definitely wouldn't be able to gather so many sea crystals. Therefore, she went to find Xiaohua as soon as she entered the Yuan Shen formation. After all, the human race Dao cultivators who could participate in the Yazi auction house would definitely have sea crystals in their Qiankuan bags. After hearing Drip's explanation, Xiaohua's heart was also relieved. After he asked about the price of the beast skin and bevan, his heart was completely at ease. He smiled and said, You don't have to worry about the price. Even if it was 10 times more expensive, this old man can still take it out. That's good, that's good. Drip was actually a little panicked. Now that she heard it, she was really grateful and said, Daoist Master, this matter. Originally, we sea tribes had to deal with it properly, but I didn't expect that Daoist Master would have to take out the sea crystals. This one doesn't know what to say. Xiaohua waved his hand and said, My human race has a saying, send Buddha to the Western Paradise, send people to their home. Since this old man has the spare energy, this old man will do it alone. But we are monster race. Drip wouldn't say this sentence normally, but facing such a compassionate Taoist Master Xiao, Drip admired him from the bottom of her heart, and couldn't help but say it. Chapter 3947. If the human race doesn't have humanity, then what's the difference between them and beasts? If the demon race has a human heart, then what's the difference between them and the human race? Xiaohua replied with a smile. AI drop sighed in shame. Back then I also devoured a lot of humans. Now that I think about it, lay down the butcher's knife and become a Buddha. As long as you start today. Xiaohua replied indifferently. Dee nodded slightly and pointed to a cave in the stone wall in front of her and said, Here it is. Xiaohua looked at the cave. It was similar to the Yazi auction house, but the scale was a lot smaller. Even the words continuous merchant union above the cave was a lot inferior. Xiao Hua and Drop landed. Drop took out a palm-sized jade tablet and handed it to the demon race guarding the cave, then pointed at Xiao Hua and said, "This is the honored guest of my general. He heard that the continuous merchant union has the rare treasure of the 1,000 demons sacred realm. He was very happy and specially came to take a look." The demon race of the continuous merchant union checked the jade tablet and returned it to Drop, then bowed and said, "Immortal friend, please not bad." Xiao Hua followed Drop into the cave and said with a smile, "The guards of this continuous merchant union are much better than the Yazi auction house. Moreover, they actually let us in during the auction." Hee. Drop covered his mouth and said, "It's just some superficial words. The continuous merchant union already knew that I went out to look for sea crystals. Of course, the Luo E Merchant Alliance is much better than the Yazi auction. Although the scale is small, they treat all the members of the Sea clan equally." Just as Qi said this, a voice sounded from inside. "Fellow immortal, the entire auction is over. I've been waiting for you for the time it takes to brew a cup of tea. The other immortal friends also accompanied me and waited for you. If you can't take out 100,000 sea crystals, then just say it directly. What are you pretending for? In fact, although I am a human, I am also a person with a reputation in the Yuling Bay. I also know a little about what you are like. It is impossible for you to take out 100,000 sea crystals. For the sake of the continuous merchant union's face, and for the sake of immortal friend, I have patiently waited for so long. If we were in the hidden immortal continent, I would have already become hostile. Sai, forget it. You probably can't take out 10,000 sea crystals anyway. You might as well take out 5,000. My apricot forest medicine store has been taken care of by the immortals of the Sea clan in Yuling Bay, and the Luo Merchant Union has been good to us as well. My apricot forest medicine store will bid for the pill formula, and Bay one at the price of 100,000 sea crystals." Even though Xinglin Drugstore's words were arrogant, they were reasonable. Lu did not know how to respond. Xiao Hua's figure flew into the auction house and laughed brightly. "Who said that General Lu doesn't have sea crystals?" "Oh, Spiritual Master Xiao." Xiao Hua's figure still hadn't appeared, but the crowd of sea race and human race in the auction hall all turned their heads in surprise, wanting to see who had arrived. At the same time, a voice that Xiao Hua was very familiar with called out in astonishment. Moreover, Xiao Hua understood that this voice was definitely not Lu's. When Xiao Hua's gaze followed the voice, he couldn't help but be amused. It turned out that the one standing in the middle of the auction wasn't another demon, but the demon clan's Ingpa whom Xiao Hua had met before. Needless to say, the Luo E Merchant Union must be related to Ingpo's clansmen. Xiao Hua landed in front of everyone's gaze and looked around the auction hall. This auction hall was only a few hundred feet in size and looked rather simple. There were some demon clan and human race, sitting in a few simple origin arrays. However, these humans and demon clan didn't cover their faces. The shock on everyone's faces fell into Xiao Hua's eyes. Xiao Hua slightly nodded towards Ingpa and walked to Lu's side. He took out a Qiankuan pouch from his Taoist robe and handed it to Lu. "General Lu, this is your sea crystal." "All right." Lu took the sea crystal with a grateful expression like Lu's. "Spiritual Master Xiao?" Across from Lu, a handsome Confucian scholar held a folding fan in his hand. He frowned and said, "This one is Zhang Yong of Yu Province's Nanyang Zhang clan. Greetings to Spiritual Master Xiao. Even though this one doesn't know which province Spiritual Master Xiao is in charge of, even though our Confucian Tao is different, we are all humans. Why is Spiritual Master Xiao helping the sea race? If this matter were to spread to the hidden immortal continent, Spiritual Master Xiao and Spiritual Master Zhao's country would have a bad reputation, right? You province's Nanyang Zhang clan?" Xiao Hua slightly pondered and immediately realized. Isn't medical Saint Zhang Zhongjing from Yu province's Nanyang Zhang clan? This Zhang Yong is naturally the descendant of medical saint. Xiao Hua hurriedly raised his hand and said, "So it's medical Saint Zhang Zhongjing's descendant. This one has been disrespectful. That's all because of my ancestors' great reputation. My ancestors' medical skills have long been lost in the hands of us juniors. This one is ashamed." Zhang Yong saw that Xiao Hua knew his clan's reputation, and was slightly proud. He kept his folding fan and cupped his hands. Even though he didn't say anything, his smile already revealed a kind of victory in his hands. He knew that Xiaohua had to give Zhang Clan face. Spiritual Master Lu also understood and said with a bitter smile, "Since that's the case, there's no need to make things difficult for Spiritual Master." This one doesn't want these things, however. Without waiting for Xiaohua to speak, Yingpu in the distance smiled and said, "So General Lu is acquainted with Spiritual Master Xiao. Why didn't you say so earlier?" "Sorry, fellow immortal Zhang. My Luo Yi Merchant Alliance won't be bidding for this item." Ah. Zhang Yong and all the other humans and demons in the auction house were stunned. Zhang Yong shouted, "Fellow immortal, if this item wasn't taken out, then it's fine. But now that the auction is over, you're saying that you won't be bidding. Where's the credibility of your Luo Yi Merchant Alliance? In the future, who will come to the Luo Yi Merchant Alliance to bid for things? Your Luo Yi Merchant Alliance can't compare to Yazi Auction House and Jiaxing Lu. With this matter, I'm afraid that in the future, there won't be any humans or even demons coming to the Luo Yi Merchant Alliance to bid for things, right?" "Hee, fellow immortal, you don't have to be like this." Xiaohua smiled and raised his hand, saying, "This one knows that the auction house should let people take a look at the items before bidding, right? This one hasn't seen this item before. Fellow immortal, can you let this one take a look?" Of course. Yingpu originally wanted to give this item to Xiaohua. Hearing Xiaohua's words, he naturally raised his hand and waved the beast skin and Beiwen. The two items landed in front of Xiaohua. Xiaohua took the beast skin and Beiwen. When he turned around, the beast skin shook slightly and instantly kept it into the space. He then handed Beiwen to Lu Dao. "General Lu, this one doesn't have any elemental thoughts. I'm afraid I can't take a look." "Take a look." Lu didn't know what Xiaohua was planning to do. After taking Beiwen, he heard Xiaohua's voice transmission. The corner of his eyes twitched a few times. He activated his elemental thoughts and pretended to look at Beiwen. He said, "Where's the beast skin? Let this one take a look again." At this moment, Xiaohua gave the beast skin to Lu and returned Beiwen to Xiaohua. Xiaohua took Beiwen and kept it into the space. Lu looked at the beast skin and pondered for a moment. He nodded and said, "Daoist Xiao, these two items are indeed what this one wants. Sai. If it was someone else, then so be it." Xiaohua reached out and took the beast skin. Beiwen also appeared in his hand. He then sighed and said, "But Yuzhou's Nanyang's Zhang clan is the descendant of the medical saint. This item, it's better to give it to them." "Oh, all right." Lu hesitated for a moment and replied, "But 5,000 sea crystals? We still have to compensate Xinglin drugstore." Xiaohua said without hesitation. "If we didn't interfere, how could Xinglin drugstore spend so many sea crystals? But just for this, we still have to compensate them with 5,000 sea crystals." "Yes," Lu replied. He took out 5,000 sea crystals from his Qiankuan bracelet. Xiaohua took it and gave it to Zhang Yong along with the beast skin and Beiwen. This happiness came too suddenly. Zhang Yong was caught unprepared. But looking at the beast skin and Beiwen, Zhang Yong clenched his teeth. Buying these two items for 95,000 sea crystals was indeed not worth it. He originally wanted to take Lu's sea crystals, and then bargain with Luo Yi Business Alliance. But Xiaohua was so generous that he couldn't open his mouth anymore. Zhang Yong could only take the two items. He took out a Qiankuan bag from his bosom, and gave it to Yingpu along with the 5,000 sea crystals. He smiled bitterly and said, "Daoist friend, here is 75,000 sea crystals. As for the remaining 20,000 sea crystals, when this one returns to Xinglin drugstore, I will immediately send someone to deliver it." "Hee, no problem, no problem." Yingpu took the Qiankuan bag and said with a smile, "This one believes in Xinglin drugstore's reputation." "Good." Zhang Yong nodded. He then cupped his hands towards Xiaohua and said, "Many thanks, Daoist friend Xiao. If you have time, come to this one's Xinglin drugstore. This one will welcome you with open arms." "No problem," Xiaohua replied with a smile. "If I have time, this one will definitely pay a visit." "Fellow Daoists." Yingpu raised his hand and said, "This auction ends here. Fellow Daoists, please come again next time." The group of demons and humans all left. Ingpa sealed the entrance of the auction hall. He turned around and bowed. Greetings, Taoist Xiao. Rise. Xiaohua helped Ingpa up and said with a smile. It has been several decades since we parted on Yaotai Mountain. Fellow Taoist, how have you been? It is all thanks to fellow Taoist. Ingpa said with a smile. With fellow Taoist's primeval stones, this one and my clansmen were able to open this Luo merchant union. Our lives have been passable. Haha, fellow Taoist's words are becoming more and more like my human race. Xiaohua laughed loudly. Ingpa looked at Lu Heli and said with a smile. Taoist Xiao, can you come with this one for a chat? Of course. Xiaohua nodded. He then said to Lu Heli, you all can go back first. This one will go back in a moment. Yes, Taoist. Lu Heli replied. He took out the Qianquan bag and was about to return it to Xiaohua. Xiaohua said with a smile. This one arbitrarily made you lose 5,000 sea crystals. The primeval stones in the bag can be considered as compensation. Ingpa smiled and took out 5,000 sea crystals from Zhang Yang's Qianquan ring. He handed it to Lu and said, wool comes from a sheep's back. Fellow Taoist allowed this one to earn 80,000 sea crystals. Take these 5,000 sea crystals as my thanks. This Lu was at a loss. Beside him, Lu Heli said, since Taoist Xiao is very close with the Luo Merchant Union, you can take it. Thank you, fellow Taoist. Lu took the sea crystals and returned the Qianquan bag to Xiaohua. Xiaohua did not say anything. He took the Qianquan bag and watched as the two sea race flew out of the auction hall. Chapter 3948. Taoist Master, please. Ingpa raised his hand and invited Xiaohua forward. Xiaohua smiled and said, don't be so polite with me. You lead the way. Yes. Ingpa smiled faintly and led Xiaohua into the auction field. They arrived at a rather large hall. This hall was similar to what the human race would normally see, but it was filled with large pieces of gravel. Ingpa said to the demon on the side of the hall, go and invite the 9 elders here. Tell them that Taoist Master Xiao is here. Taoist Master Xiao? The demon was startled. He looked at Xiaohua with a different gaze and hurriedly left. 9 elders? Xiaohua stepped into the hall and said with a smile, are they the elders of your clan? Ingpa nodded and said, yes. Then, Ingpa took out a jade chair from the heaven and earth ring and placed it on the side of the stone. He raised his hand and said, Taoist Master, please sit. Okay. Xiaohua knew that this was the place where the human race's honored guests sat. So he sat down without hesitation. He then looked at Ingpa sitting on the main seat next to him. Xiaohua suddenly woke up and cupped his hands. Oh, congratulations, Taoist Master. You are now the head of a clan? Taoist Master Xiao, you must be joking. Ingpa smiled. My clan is a small clan in the 1,000 Demon Sacred Realm. Being the head of a clan is nothing. Moreover, my position as the head of a clan is related to Taoist Master Xiao. Oh, could it be? Xiaohua already understood. Ingpa explained. Taoist Master Xiao is right. It is because I made a few transactions with Taoist Master and Black Wind Mountain Range. My clans had just happened to be in trouble, so I stood out. Haha, Taoist Master Xiao is prepared and has the ability to seize opportunities. Xiaohua said with a smile. This has nothing to do with me. Ingpa smiled and took out some rare fruits from the heaven and earth ring for Xiaohua to taste. After a while, he probed Taoist Master Xiao. After making a few transactions with Black Wind Mountain Range, when I was preparing to go there, I received the news that Black Wind Mountain Range was being attacked by Immortal Palace. I also heard Taoist Master Xiao's fame of defeating Immortal Palace. I am very worried for Taoist Master Xiao. I even secretly went to see Black Wind Mountain Range. That place is completely different from before. But I really didn't expect that Taoist Master Xiao would suddenly come to Yulingbei today. It's nothing. Xiaohua said with a smile. I had an appointment with a fellow Taoist, so I came here, but I didn't run into him. Therefore, this Xiao is preparing to return. Xiaohua roughly explained everything that he could say. In the end, he smiled and said, if I didn't see it with my own eyes, how could I have thought that the Luo Merchant Union was actually fellow immortals? Hee, it seems like fellow immortal is fated to follow me. Otherwise, why would you still come to my Luo Merchant Alliance after several rejections? Ingpa laughed and said, if fellow immortal wants any Bay 1 elixirs or pill formulas, I can ask my clansmen to find them. When he heard up to here, Xiaohua had an idea in his heart, and he probed. Fellow immortal, I'll ask you something. Please go ahead, fellow immortal. Ingpa replied with a smile. Earlier, you said that you obtained information about the Black Wind Mountain Range, Xiaohua said in a low voice. So, your Luo Merchant Union has a certain source of information in the hidden immortal continent. Of course. Ingpa nodded. For Zhaixing Lu, Li Lai Trading Company and my Luo Merchant Union, information is sometimes like sea crystals. Only by having a source of information all over the hidden immortal continent can we find business opportunities. However, my Luo Merchant Union has only been established for a short period of time, and we haven't done enough in this aspect. A lot of information is bought with vitality stones. So it's like this. Xiaohua pinched his chin, and his mind spun rapidly. Then he said something shocking. Fellow immortal, if this Xiao manages this Luo Merchant Union with you, will your Luo Merchant Union be able to develop very quickly? What did fellow immortal say? Ingpa was shocked, and he didn't know how to answer. After a moment, Ingpa said with a bitter smile, fellow immortal Xiao, this Xiao knows that your cultivation is profound, and there are also a lot of vitality stones in your Qianquan bag. However, not to mention that for my Luo Merchant Union to develop, the amount of vitality stones that fellow immortal thinks is far beyond what fellow immortal thinks. This Xiao doesn't think that fellow immortal can take it out. If fellow immortal wants to cooperate with my Luo Merchant Union, with just these vitality stones, I'm afraid it's impossible. Of course, Xiaohua said with a smile. This Luo Merchant Union belongs to fellow immortal and your clansmen. This Xiao definitely doesn't have any covetous thoughts. This Xiao just wants to cooperate with fellow immortal and be able to obtain information about the hidden immortal continent from your Luo Merchant Union, and even information about the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm and the Western Paradise. Fellow immortal, you think too highly of this Xiao. Ingpa didn't know whether to laugh or cry. How far does my Luo Merchant Union have to develop to be able to provide so much information for fellow immortal Xiao? Why not? Xiaohua said with a smile. As long as the Luo Merchant Union cooperates with this Xiao will let you broaden your horizons. How is that possible if Xiaohua wasn't Ingpo's benefactor? Ingpo would have already driven him away. How could a Taoist cultivator know the twists and turns of running a merchant union, even if he could defeat perfected Lord Qingyuan? However, before Ingpa could say anything else, 9 demon clan members who looked similar to Ingpa came in from the outside. Ingpa stood up and introduced with a smile. Elders, this is the Taoist Master Xiao that I mentioned to the elders earlier. If it wasn't for his help, I'm afraid it wouldn't be so easy for us to establish the merchant union. Since Taoist Master Xiao has come to visit, I invite the elders to come and meet him. The 9 elders were different from Ingpo. Some of them looked enthusiastic, while some looked cold. However, Xiaohua didn't care. One by one he returned the greeting. His etiquette was very considerate. However, seeing that the 9 elders of the Ingpa clan were all in Yuling Bay, Xiaohua was a little surprised. Elders, please take a seat. Ingpa sat down first and said to the 9 elders. The 9 elders sat on different pieces of gravel. Rather than saying that they were sitting, it was better to say that they were lying down. They looked very comfortable. Ingpa looked at Xiaohua, thought for a moment and said, Elders, Taoist Master Xiao has done a favor for our clan. He came to find me today because he has something important to discuss with me. Since all the elders are here, I would like to hear your opinions. With that, Ingpa told them that Xiaohua wanted to cooperate with the merchant union and obtained information from the merchant union. An elder waited for Ingpa to finish speaking, then waved his hand and said, Although Taoist Master Xiao has done a favor for our clan, this merchant union belongs to our clan. When we established it, we didn't plan to cooperate with anyone. Besides, our clan no longer has a place to stand in the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm. This merchant union is our clan's last hope. The human clan has a saying, How can we allow others to sleep beside our bed? I don't think it's appropriate. That's right. If Taoist Master Xiao wants information, he can exchange it with primordial stones. Why do we have to cooperate? Humans are humans. It's hard to get rid of their greedy hearts. Originally, they wanted to make a deal with our clan, but now that they see our merchant union prospering, they want to interfere. In the end, they want to swallow the entire merchant union for themselves. This kind of thing I've seen many times. Xiao Hua smiled but didn't say anything. After all, what the elders said was true. Everyone had their own thoughts, not to mention the difference between the human race and the Yao race. It was normal for these Yao race that he had never met before to doubt him. He Yingpa smiled and said to Xiao Hua, "Fellow Taoist, as you can see, although I'm the clan leader, many things need to be unanimously decided by the elders. I've already told you about this situation before." Xiao Hua stood up, raised his hand, and took out a universe bracelet. He casually handed it to an elder beside him and said, "Fellow Taoist, take a look at this first, then you can make a decision later." That elder was a bit hesitant. He looked at Yingpa and the other demons, but still took it. Xiao Hua continued, "This Xiao knows that fellow Taoists have misgivings. After all, this is the first time we've met. Moreover, although Yingpa trusts this Xiao, after all, he represents the interests of the clan. There are many things." Just as Xiao Hua was speaking, the clan leader of the demon clan cried out in alarm, his face showing an inconceivable expression. He. Xiao Hua wasn't surprised and continued, "Yingpa has many things to consider from the clan's interests. He can't make decisions on his own. This old man hasn't seen Yingpa much, but I know that he's a genius in business. However, what he lacks is the conditions to make the merchant union bigger. This Xiao has never been interested in the merchant union. My hope for the merchant union is some information. Of course, if you want to buy information, you can, but how can it be as efficient as controlling the information yourself? This Xiao is different from Yingpu. This Xiao has no interest in managing the merchant union, but this Xiao has the means to expand the merchant union. When the two are combined, it's a win-win situation." At this moment, the yin-yang bracelet in the hands of the clan leader of the demon clan had already been passed to two elders. The two elders were also extremely surprised, but fortunately, they didn't cry out in alarm. Seeing this, Yingpa was also somewhat surprised. His gaze fell on the yin-yang bracelet, and he seemed to be lost in thought. "Yingpa, take a look at this." As he spoke, Xiao Hua took out another yin-yang bracelet and passed it to Yingpa. Yingpa took it and scanned it with his origin force. He couldn't help but cry out again. What then? Yingpa realized that he had lost his composure. He looked at Xiao Hua and passed the yin-yang bracelet to an elder beside him. "Yingpa, this Xiao has more than this," Xiao Hua said with a smile. "Moreover, this Xiao will continuously provide these things to the merchant union. Do you think this Xiao has the capital to cooperate with the merchant union?" This Yingpa was somewhat hesitant. Xiao Hua struck while the iron was hot. He took out a jade bottle and passed it to Yingpa. "Take a look at this." "What is this?" Yingpa took the jade bottle and looked at it. He was somewhat puzzled and asked curiously, "This bitter? What is this?" "Medicine." Xiao Hua pointed with his hand and said, "This is the medicine of the Water Clan controlled by the Apricot Forest Medicine Store. This Xiao already had the bevan from before. This Xiao refined some of it myself. The raw materials are all from the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm and the North Sea." Chapter 3949. Hearing this, Yingbo couldn't help but stand up. Previously, Xiao Hua's Heaven and Earth bracelet only contained some magic tools and other things. Although Yingbo was surprised, it was not enough to shock him. However, the medicine that Xiao Hua took out made Yingbo unable to sit still. He clearly knew the status of the Apricot Forest Medicine Shop in the Yuling Bay. Since Xiao Hua could take out this kind of medicine, he could naturally take out other things. Don't worry, Xiao Hua decided to say something shocking. He raised his hand and took out another Heaven and Earth bracelet and handed it to Yingbo. He said, "Fellow immortal, take a look at this. What is this?" Yingbo didn't wait for the Heaven and Earth bracelet to fly over. He walked over and took the Heaven and Earth bracelet from the air. He checked it with his primordial thought and said in surprise, This is just a grain for the human race? What's the use of it? He Xiaohua said with a smile. Perhaps you demons don't need this grain, but what about the hidden immortal continent and the pure land? If the merchant union wants to gain a foothold in these two places, which Confucian cultivator or Buddhist disciple would dare to go against the merchant union when you take out these things that are related to the people's livelihood? Ingbo and other demons naturally don't need this grain. They couldn't figure out the importance of it. However, after hearing Xiaohua's words, they immediately understood. Ingbo even said with a smile, not just the two continents of the human race. Even in my 1,000 demons sacred realm, there are still many demons who need this grain. But the problem is Ingbo was a little hesitant. Fellow immortal, you can only take out a cup of water on a burning cart of firewood. Xiaohua laughed. Don't forget about the disciples of my Black Wind Mountain. Where did they go? Ingbo patted his forehead and said with a smile. Taoist Xiao is really far-sighted. I seem to understand a little. Now, I'm afraid the number of disciples of my Black Wind Mountain is more than 10 times what you saw that day, Xiaohua said with a smile. Besides, with my reputation now, recruiting some Taoist cultivators is not a difficult thing. These spiritual herbs, magic tools, and grain can be endlessly given to me. Actually, my Taoist cultivators in the hidden immortal continent ostracized us. Otherwise, why would I cooperate with the merchant union? Sigh, not bad. Ingpa finally understood Xiaohua's thoughts. He raised his head and looked at the elders who had already seen the universe bracelets. Then he passed the medicine to them. This medicine, Xiaohua chuckled. To tell you the truth, if the continuous merchant union can find more demon herbs, demon fruits, and other things, I can still let the disciples of the Black Wind Ridge refine even more. There's no need to talk about the seeds, but the medicine should be enough to make the name of the trade union known throughout the 1,000 demons sacred realm. Immortal's conditioning said with a bitter smile. I really can't refuse. The 9 elders looked through the items in the universal bracelet, and their eyes revealed a rare look of greed. Unfortunately, they couldn't see through Xiaohua's strength. Moreover, they knew that Xiaohua had defeated perfected Lord Qingyuan, who would dare to have any evil thoughts. Elders, what do you think? Ingpa asked. The group of elders looked at the universal bracelet in Ingpo's hands. They looked at each other for a moment and said, Immortal Xiao is an old friend of the clan leader. This matter, let the clan leader decide for himself. Immortal friend Xiaohua hurriedly said, when I talked to Ingpa earlier, I didn't plan to take out so many things. Therefore, I only plan to cooperate with the continuous merchant union to obtain information. Now that I've made it clear, I'm sure all the elders can see that the things I took out, not to mention the Prophet Merchant Union, even Star Picking Tower, is willing to cooperate with me. Therefore, my cooperation with the continuous merchant union may have to deepen a bit. Immortal Xiao, do you mean that the Black Wind Ridge will cooperate with the continuous merchant union? Ingpa understood something and asked. Xiaohua nodded. Yes, you're right. My Black Wind Ridge provides the continuous merchant union with an endless supply of things. Naturally, my Black Wind Ridge will get something in return. This is different from the cooperation between me and the Luo Yi Business Alliance. Ingpa thought for a moment and said, it's possible to cooperate with the Dao sect. However, this matter is of great importance. I can't decide on my own. I need to discuss it with the elders. Immortal Xiao, please wait a moment. Well said. Xiaohua sat down and said, you wait for the discussion. Bring me some demon herbs and demon fruits, no problem. Seeing Xiaohua's current appearance, Ingpa knew that he was very confident in this cooperation. He answered and called the demon race on guard outside. He then left with the group of elders. Xiaohua asked the demon race on guard for some demon fruits and some special aquatic plants in the North Sea. Then he waved his hands and created waves of water. The water melted the aquatic plants and demon fruits one by one like flames. Then, Xiaohua used the water dissolution technique to start refining medicine in the hall. Seeing Xiaohua's miraculous skills, the demon race on guard was dumbstruck. Xiaohua's Qi Huang technique had long been perfected to the point of perfection. Refining a simple medicine was a piece of cake for him. In just a short moment, Xiaohua had finished refining the medicine. Seeing that Ing Bo and the other members of the demon clan had yet to return, he simply continued to refine. Only after he had refined more than 10 medicines did Ing Bo return to the hall. However, the 9 elders did not follow him, and the universe bangles were no longer in Ing Bo's hands. Xiaohua naturally understood. He waved his hand and the water disappeared. He asked, "Fellow immortal, have you made a decision?" "Alas, Immortal Xiaohua's things are really good. The conditions are also very generous. My inferior clansmen have no choice but to agree." Ingpa smiled bitterly and said, "However, the elders also made it clear that this continuous merchant union is the last hope of my clan. They don't want Immortal Xiaohua to control it." "Alas, what kind of worry is this?" Xiaohua waved his hand and said, "This Xiao will definitely not. Moreover, this Xiao also guarantees that my Black Wind Ridge will not interfere in the development of the continuous merchant union. This Xiao and my Black Wind Ridge's development will only be in the cultivation of Taoism. If that's the case, this one agrees to cooperate with the Black Wind Ridge on behalf of my clansmen." Ingpa raised his claws and said solemnly, "The continuous merchant union can give Black Wind Ridge 70% of the profits from the items of the Black Wind Ridge. As for the information that Black Wind Ridge needs, our continuous merchant union will unconditionally provide it. Immortal Xiao, as an ally of our continuous merchant union, not only will our continuous merchant union provide Immortal Xiao with the things that he needs first, our continuous merchant union can also give Immortal Xiao 10% of the profits every year. Of course, the condition is that whenever our continuous merchant union needs Immortal Xiaohua, Immortal Xiaohua must act at any time." "Oh, you still want this one to act?" Xiaohua was somewhat surprised by the last condition. Ingpa smiled bitterly and said, "The continuous merchant union is the hope of my clan. However, my clan no longer has a place in the 1,000 Demons sacred realm. Therefore, this one has been thinking about finding a backer. Previously, this one did not feel that Immortal Xiaohua was very powerful. However, since Immortal Xiaohua was able to defeat Immortal Qing Yuan, your future prospects are limitless. If this one does not establish a good relationship with Immortal Xiaohua, when should I wait? Of course, if Immortal Xiao feels that 10% is not much, this one can give Immortal Xiao 5% of my profits. That's not necessary. This one just feels that as a Taoist cultivator, I will inevitably have some conflicts with Confucian cultivators in the future. I'm afraid that I will implicate the continuous merchant union in the future. Immortal Xiao doesn't need to worry about this. The demon clan's business in the hidden immortal continent and western land of ultimate bliss is already filled with difficulties. Immortal Xiao doesn't matter if you are a Taoist cultivator or a Confucian cultivator, as long as your strength is outstanding." Xiaohua was overjoyed and was about to agree. However, his heart moved and he said, "Also the food seeds, medicine and other things, you need to say that they are provided by Immortal Xiao. If possible, there is no need for any sea crystals or primeval stones." "This is naturally possible." Ingpa nodded. "There are also many poor demon clans in the 1,000 Demons sacred realm. They may not have any primeval stones to give to Immortal Xiao." "Good." Xiaohua raised his hand and patted Ingpo's claws. "This is considered a formal alliance. Many thanks to Immortal Xiao for giving my continuous merchant union another chance." Ingpa knew that Xiaohua was a man of his words and his heart was set. He smiled and took out a flat bone piece from his bosom and handed it to Xiaohua. "This is Immortal Xiao's keepsake. With this keepsake, Immortal Xiao can exercise authority in the continuous merchant union. That is second only to me and the 9 elders." "Ah, good." Xiaohua took the bone piece and looked at it. There was a strange demon beast engraved on it. It was actually similar to a low-level demon beast in the legacy world. Xiaohua took the bone piece and said, "Since this one is an ally of the continuous merchant union, you should bring some more universe bracelets over." This time, this one came out with something. If it wasn't for meeting fellow immortal, perhaps the Linlai Trading Company would have benefited. "Good." Ingpa hurriedly ordered the demon clan guarding outside to take the universe bracelets. However, he said in a low voice, "Immortal Xiao, when this one came in, Immortal Xiao was refining medicine?" "Yes." Xiaohua nodded. "That's what this one promised Lu Hedi." Actually, there are many old sea clan members in this Yuling Bay. You should bring enough demon fruits and seaweed. This one will refine a batch for you first. This is naturally possible, Ingpa said somewhat embarrassedly, but what this one means is this refining technique. Can immortal Xiaohua teach this one's clansmen? Hearing this, Xiaohua immediately came to a realization. He nodded and said, "Of course. You and I are now in a cooperative relationship. This one naturally can teach your clansmen what this one knows." Immortal Xiaohua. Ingpa was almost about to cry. Just now, there was an elder who said that immortal Xiaohua had bad intentions. This one, as the patriarch, rejected it. Now it seems that elder was really measuring the heart of a gentleman with his own mean measure. My human clan has a saying, distance tests a horse's strength, and time reveals a person's heart. In the future, it will be fine after a long time, Xiaohua said indifferently. You should find a few, or call all the clansmen who have some experience in refining medicine. This one is now thinking of how to teach them the refining technique. Okay, this one will do it right away. Ingpa couldn't even close his mouth. He hurriedly ran out by himself. He didn't even call the demon clan member on duty. Xiaohua sat back in his chair. In his mind, he was thinking of how to teach the demon clan how to refine medicine. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.